Hey Shannon, can I do a sound check?
Yes, you can. Hello. Sorry, I'm slow on the draw.
No, that's awesome. I was like, wow, it's not working now. Thank you, Shannon.
No,
That's great.
It does work. You're good.
Thank you. It's been a while since I presented in an online meeting, so thank you.
Yeah. And do you want to test PowerPoint, or are you okay?
No, we're hopefully not going to do any slides.
Oh, great. Okay.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
Bye.
Nice picture in the background.
Yay.
Hey, Corey, you can buy a Chevy Bolt for less than a gem car. That's Ward.
Yeah.
I want to go electric.
Was asked about that today myself. And that was my response is we're trying to set an example.
I'm ready.
Quickest way we can do that is go green.
Hey, Rachel, how the bears back there? Or monkeys?
You're muted, Rachel.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. They're all doing pretty good, behaving themselves. Every now and then you'll be sleeping and someone will fall down and jump on your face or something. But we're got a new trip coming up end of March, beginning of April. We're going to go to Cozumel. And I've never been to Mexico beaches or anything, do a little snorkeling. So we'll have to bring back some sort of sea fish or something. Maybe a sea turtle.
Eat it, oh, I mean, a stuffed sea fish.
Yeah. There we go.
Hey, Nicole, how's it going?
Hey there. I'm doing okay. I had PT today, so it was a good day.
Oh,
Great, I'm calling you hop along now for the next month.
Yeah.
I didn't know you'd hurt yourself, Nicole. Ankle or knee or?
Yeah, I tore my ACL skiing and I had surgery a couple weeks ago.
Oh, wow. Well, I hope it heals up well for you.
I hope so too. It's just going to take some time.
It's amazing how they can put us back together anymore.
Well, I know. Yeah, and a lot of us lately.
Yeah. Very good.
That's me knocking on wood.
Tis the season, right?
Yeah.
Oof.
Amen. All right, we're just at the 5 o'clock hour. We've got council members here, so if we can make sure everybody's recording or sending out broadcasts. GrassRoots ready?
Just one moment. GrassRoots is ready.
Thank you for joining us this evening. This is the City of Aspen City Council regular meeting for February 8th, 2022. Hopefully this will actually be our last fully remote meeting as we're hoping to get. Hang on everybody, 1 second.
For some reason, every time I go to it, it goes to yesterday's meeting and it just puts me in a waiting room.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Yes, I'll send it right now. We lost Skippy here for a second. We're gonna get him back online. Let's see here.
Mr. Mayor, I've sent a new invite.
Okay. All right. I'm sure he will be on shortly then. As I was saying, we are hopefully our last fully remote meeting. We do have the equipment that we've been waiting for. Hopefully installation is going to be happening this week and we'll be back together in new City Hall Council chambers very soon. Let's have that as a call to order. And can we have a roll call for attendance, please?
Councilor Doyle,
Here,
Councilor Howenstein,
Present.
Councilor Mazzaro,
He's got it. He'll be here in a second.
okay. Councilor Richards,
Here.
Mayor Tory,
And I am here as well. When he gets in, we'll just note it for the record. All right. This evening, we don't have any scheduled public appearances, but I do have a proclamation that I want to read. This proclamation was presented to the National Brotherhood of Skiers, and they are in town for a week. So, proclamation of the City of Aspen, Colorado. Whereas the City of Aspen is proud to welcome the National Brotherhood of Skiers to our vibrant and welcoming ski town. Whereas National Brotherhood of Skiers brought their members positive energy and passion for snow sports to Aspen and the Roaring Fork Valley for the first summit in 1973. And whereas the commitment of NBS members and their dedication to creating inclusion in the outdoor winter sports in Aspen and throughout the nation is an inspiration for our city. And whereas Aspen works as a city and community to celebrate the mental, physical, and spiritual triumphs of all of its locals and visitors. And whereas in these days of continued racial and social inequalities, it is important for the city and community to promote and celebrate diversity, equity, and inclusivity. Whereas the city of Aspen is proud to embrace the National Brotherhood of Skiers Summit, both now and into the future, as a cherished event and an important and empowering voice of diversity onto our slopes and into our community. So now, therefore, be proclaimed that the mayor, city council, and the citizens of the city of Aspen hereby proclaim February 5th to February 12th, 2022 as National Brotherhood of Skiers Week. In honor of the great contribution the NBS Summit and clubs bring to the city of Aspen and the Roaring Fork Valley.
Thank you.
Yeah, I will tell you, it was greatly appreciated. Their arrival was on last Saturday. On Sunday, we had a welcome for them out in Snowmass, where they're doing a majority of their lodging. And just a wonderful event, not just for the celebration, but really for the social awareness that was there as well. And just fantastic. So we would just want to say again, welcome to the National Brotherhood of Skiers. This is their 49th year. 73 was actually their first summit, and it took place in Aspen. They've been here about 6 times since then. And our hope is that they'll come back next year and enjoy their 50th anniversary with us. So again, a big welcome to the National Brotherhood of Skiers. That will bring us down to citizens' comments and petitions. This is an opportunity for citizens to address council on issues not scheduled for a public hearing. And again, we're going to start off by limiting these to 3 minutes, please, so everybody has an equal opportunity to speak tonight. Are there members of the public that wish to talk to council about any items? Please unmute yourself and introduce yourself for the record.
And how do you unmute again, Tori?
If you're on a telephone, you are *6. We believe, because it's possible that your actual mute button might do it on some phones, but *6 does work. I'm not seeing any callers calling in, so I'll do one last call for members of the public that wish to address council this evening. I'll go ahead and close citizen comment and petitions this evening and bring us down to special orders of the day, opportunity for council member and mayor's comments. Council members, start off with anybody has comments this evening. John, I'll go to John first.
I'll just go ahead and thank Shannon for all her hard work. I got my new name tag today, my keys to the card key to the new city hall. And she's just been very helpful recently. And I'm really looking forward, as I think we all are, to meeting in person in our new city hall starting next week.
Very good. Yeah, Tori, I really have no comments today other than, mention a few things when we get to the board reports. But it's really nice to see that we've reached the midpoint of winter. The days are getting longer. People have had some bluebird skiing days. It's still a little slick out there and there's still some black guys. So just be careful, and thanks everybody for helping keep our community safe as we're coming through the end, hopefully, of the pandemic.
Thank you, Rachel. And Rachel, tonight, we, after our discussion last evening about authorizing a $5,000 funding towards the confound in Boulder, we do need that by a motion. So I'd love, since you brought that to council table, if you would give us a motion to approve that expenditure for the city manager office to execute that on behalf of council.
Okay, thank you, Tori. That's very nice. I would make a motion that the city of Aspen contribute $5,000 to the ComDev Recovery Foundation Fund for Boulder County for the Louisville and Superior fire, as directing the city manager to take that from the appropriate funds.
I need a second.
Second.
Thank you, John. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion here? And could we have a roll call vote for that, please, Nicole?
Counselor Doyle,
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein,
Yes.
Counselor Mesereau,
Yes.
Counselor Richards, Mayor
Yes,
Tory.
And yes. Thank you again.
thank you all. You know, it's the old Amish saying that many hands make for light work, and we all know the story of stone soup, and every contribution is welcomed. So thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. And I just want to echo that same sentiment. Obviously $5,000 is not a lot in the devastation that they've suffered, but it's our way of supporting them in any way we can. We also want to inspire and hope that other members of our community may join this as well and go on to COMM, found, FOUND, .org, I believe, and make a donation as well. Help our Front Range neighbors out. The other thing I wanted to mention is that, as it was said in our memo, as well as the article in the paper, that Babs at the Big Rap is available to be a point person for any members of the community that wish to also participate. So please find Babs over at the Big Rap. Talk to her about coordinating any other donations, whether they're monetary or goods. Or in-kind services for that matter. They're pretty needy of a lot of stuff. So thank you again for that, Rachel. Other council members, comments this evening?
I will just point out that the incident rate in Pickens County is still above what we would like to see, but the Aspen Valley's hospital ability to care for people is in good shape. And so although we have a higher incident rate than we would hope for, I don't feel that the community is in as much of a risk as they have been with some of the earlier variants. And we have a Board of Health meeting coming up on the 10th, 2 days from now. And I would hope that we can remove the mask mandate in light of the Aspen Valley Hospital's ability to deliver care, that there are plenty of beds. And the one area of concern is that there are quite a few workers that are not being able to attend work because of COVID. But assuming that our rates continue to improve for the Aspen Valley Hospital, I would encourage us to move to a no mask mandate.
Thank you, Ward. Skippy, comments this evening?
Didn't have any prepared comments. Ward, thank you for that. So I would just offer the same. I think we need to look at the whole picture, and I was very supportive of mask mandates when we were in a different place. And with our rates of vaccination and infection, I think the balance has shifted. And, I think there's probably more harm from the mental and social elements of our health now being done than there is help from the physical aspects of health. And that's a new thing. So I also would support removal of the mandate. I understand the Board of Health may be considering a date that's not immediate, but is in the near future. And I think, a smooth transition is fine and called for. So if it takes a little bit of time, that's acceptable. But I do think it is time.
Rachel.
Yeah, I didn't know we were going to be weighing in on this. And I guess I'm the center of the seesaw right now, because I'd love to be able to say, let's do that. But when I looked at the dashboard this morning, our rates were, ticking up a little bit. And I think it was 79, or was it 76 residents in the past 7 days, plus out of town people as well. And so, seeing 79 new positives of people who bothered to take the test in a 7-day period is a little concerning. And so I'm just going to see what the broader group feels like. I am tired of masking as well, to tell you the truth, but I am still concerned that we've got 6 weeks worth of visitors coming to town from communities that haven't taken the vaccination or other precautions as seriously as we have. And I know we still have an awful lot of people who are just not willing to go into town or into restaurants yet, who live here, who don't feel their own town is safe for them. So I'm not saying we have to keep it, but I'm not ready to say we have to get rid of it yet either. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Rachel. As soon as I get the memo and agenda for Thursday's meeting, I'll be sending it over to you. My suspicion is it typically comes in around this time on Tuesdays. And then I'll probably be reaching out to you by a phone call to get some clear voices together as we go into the meeting on Thursday. So we'll have an opportunity to really get that voice together.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate you guys weighing in, but I will be checking in with you probably again tomorrow. With that, comments for me this evening. Let's see, a couple of items. One, I wanted to encourage people to check out aspenfilm.org. They have some great online virtual offerings, as well as doing a lot of partnerships throughout the Valley this month. Some of it is in honor of Black History Month, but there's a lot of diverse programming going on. They're partnering with the Aspen Art Museum, with TACA, with the Aspen Historical Society as well on a lot of offerings. And, you know, people are still staying home a little bit. So if you need some great fun, great entertainment, please go to aspenfilm.org. They've got great offerings there. The other community event that I wanted to mention was Laura Whitley tomorrow at Sky Gallery, 5 to 7. Laura is embarking on an art project, and she's going to be giving a talk about what that project is. There's going to be a DJ and drinks, but it's really going to be a great locals event with the conversation around this art project. She is erecting a rather large open air meditation pyramid down valley, and it's just an amazing project with a lot of locals involved. So anyway, Sky Gallery tomorrow, 5 to 7. The other thing I want to say is, as I always like to point out, things that are better to do than city council meetings. I believe Michaela Schifrin is racing this evening at 6 o'clock. So for anybody that's on the meeting, you definitely have a better option coming up in 45 minutes. And then the last thing that I would like to say tonight is that I'm extremely proud of this council. I'm extremely proud of our staff here at the city. You know, it's become really apparent to me over the last month of how much we are taking on, how much work we're doing on behalf of our community. And I just want to take this opportunity because, you know, we get different input about whether it's the moratorium that's set forth or some of the changes to parking or downtown that we're looking at doing. And it really just dawned on me that, you know, these are days and opportunities for us to really move our community in a way that best suits our community for sustainability and for those locals that live and work and give their blood, sweat, and tears to this place. And I'm just really proud because as I think about the things that we're tackling, and boy, it's a lot. We're asking a lot of our staff and each other, that I'm really galvanized in the fact that we're doing great work and we're trying to have a vision for what the best Aspen of the future is. And I just really appreciate that, you know, taking that initiative and moving forward. And again, you know, some people in our community question some of what we're doing, but again, it is based on what we believe is best for our community in the long run and for all of our community members. So I just want to say my thanks to this council and to our staff because everybody's working very hard on a lot of different issues, and I really appreciate it. John.
Yeah, I just, in the spirit of what you were saying about Michaela race tonight, I just wanted to give a shout out to Ryan Cochran Siegel, who won second in the men's downhill. His mother won first in slalom, I believe, in the Sapporo Olympics. So anyway, huge day for U.S. skiing.
Thank you. With that, we'll move down. I don't have any other agenda amendments this evening. So that'll bring us to city manager's comments, and we have Sarah back with us. Sarah, comments tonight?
Good evening, members of council. It's good to be back with you after my extended absence. Couple quick things for you. First, on the funds for the Boulder Community Foundation, those will be charged to City Council's discretionary funds within your budget, just so you're aware of where those funds will be withdrawn from. And then secondly, I plan to forward each of you an interesting article that I was reading today about inequality in ski towns as a precursor of what suburban America can expect to see have happen next. And it was published just yesterday in the Deseret News. I think you'll find it interesting. It highlights Aspen quite a bit, including the moratoria actions that you took. A lot has in there some locker room conversation at Ski Patrol, as well as some reflections of Jackson Hole. So I just found it probably one of the more interesting with data articles to see on what's happening with income disparity in our ski towns. Thank you. Any questions for me today?
Just welcome back. It's good to see you.
Yeah.
Good to see you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah.
Board reports this evening.
Let's see. We do not have APCHA this week, and we will have APCHA next week on the 16th. The Rudai Water and Power Authority Board is having a kind of a mini retreat coming on Thursday of this week from noon to 5 p.m. I will be attending that and look forward to it. And then there is a Colorado Municipal League call coming up on Friday for an hour, see what's going on with state legislature and state activities. Also, in particularly, next week will be the policy committees for Club 20 meeting in Grand Junction. That will be the 17th and the 18th. And as I think I've mentioned before, they are really kind of tightening up some of the subcommittees to have shorter time periods on education or healthcare, where they really haven't been able to pull together a lot of muscle versus really concentrating on water, agriculture, and public land uses and those issues. So I'm looking forward to these two meetings on the 17th and 18th being a little more compact than usual. In the past, Club 20 would have 2 different weeks worth of 2-day policy meetings. So we're really condensing down on that. And I think I've given you guys this date before, but I really would like, if anyone else would like to attend, or anyone who is felt to be appropriate from our staff, their larger conference this March is going to be on Thursday the 24th and a half day or so on Friday the 25th. And it's going to be focusing on water and watershed health and wildfire. And so they've really been focusing on getting some big state and even federal talent and expertise to be able to focus on this. I have let April know about it. I don't know if it would be of interest to Tyler or his department, but those are the things that are coming up that I think are pretty significant. And then working with John, we are kind of team tagging on CML whenever there's overlap between those 2 sets of meetings, both groups focusing on legislative matters. So that's pretty much all I have right now for board reports. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. John, I've got a hand there.
Nothing to report. I've got a Nordic Council meeting next week and that conference in Denver for CML that Rachel was talking about. And Rachel, I'm very interested in going to that thing on water and wildfires. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, I'll get, when the formal invitations come out, I'll get Shannon to get you hooked up. Thank you.
Oh, and I'll be missing a core board meeting while I'm in Denver at the CML. I'm sure Ward will pick up the slack there. Thanks, Ward.
Thanking ahead of time. I like that, John. Well done. Well done. Any other board reports this evening? Skippy?
Yes, Northwest COG meeting. We drafted or laid out the outlines for a policy statement from Northwest COG for the state legislators, and we should be getting a draft of that back soon. A lot of the stuff mirrors the CAST report, kind of zoning, partnerships, short-term rentals, vacancy, land acquisitions, and real estate transfer taxes. So we should have something there too. We got mental health reports from a few different counties, Summit County and Eagle County or the Vail Valley, and kind of shared a bunch of the work that they're doing. We can go into more detail when you guys want. And then we also got a lengthy jobs report, which is actually very interesting around the Great Resignation and how the Great Resignation isn't really the Great Resignation, but the Great Reshuffling. It's not that people are dropping out of the workforce, it's that they're dropping out of their jobs and joining other and different types of jobs, which is one of the things we hear all the time from people like Michael Miracle about where people are going and what kind of jobs. So there was that. And then we did have an APCHA meeting a week ago. Rachel, did you want to cover any of that or did you want me to do it? Can't hear
Do it again, Rachel.
I can't wait to get off of unmute. But Skippy, you go for it. I was kind of thinking you'd cover that one.
Got it. Okay, great. So highlights, Home Track quarterly report. So since we've had Home Track, this is our first 3 months. And so we got an update that is publicly available. It's on the website. You should look at it. And we gave notes to staff on next time what would be more helpful or what to continue, what to change. And would love to hear that from you guys too. So if you guys can check out that report and say, it'd be really great if we knew X, let us know and we can make that request. We got a presentation of the communication plan. We have a communication plan now, guys. We're going to communicate, and it's got multi-prongs and includes things like newspapers and social media, and is really a step forward in intentionally reaching out and cultivating communication with our community. And there was some really good board comment about not only jumping into the tech future, but also rooting in our in-person and communal past as well. So I think that's really important. And then we gave kind of the final direction to move forward with the new deed restriction, which is a opportunity. We want people to come under the new deed restriction for a couple reasons. Maybe their deed restriction is sunsetting and we want to maintain that deed restriction. And maybe their deed restriction is old and does not have the enabling language for the Standards for Seller program, which we think is important to the long-term health of the community and of our housing stock. And in exchange for people who have older deed restrictions, 10 years or older, it allows you to reset your assessed value to your new appreciated amount, get a new 10% for capital improvements, so a new 10% and it's on that new value. And it gives you a variety of green improvements that you could make that do not have a capital improvements limit, but obviously depreciate like everything else. And so those are some really big benefits for the recipient. And we're eager to see how many people jump into that.
Good work, you guys. Thank you so much for that. Thanks, Skippy.
Well, we really owe a lot to Diane, and I think we should say that she has done a wonderful job. And Matthew now is really getting his feet under him as well. So credit where credit's due. Thank you.
100%. Well said, Rachel.
Ward?
Yeah, I have a lot of meetings coming up in the next couple of weeks. We did have a CCLC meeting in that we reviewed continuing the process of processing the summer Saturday market for artisans. So we looked at a lot of submissions for artisans. Have a core governance committee meeting this Thursday and the full core board meeting on the 17th. Wheeler board meeting tomorrow, raft on Thursday. The Sister Cities, I think that's Thursday as well. And Friday, there's a Pickens County Housing Stability Coalition meeting. So a lot of stuff coming up. That's about all I have to say about that. I can report about what went on those other meetings. Tori, of course, is our voting member on the RAFTA board, but I normally tag along and I'm a fly on the wall.
A loud fly. He does not just sit there. Thanks, Ward. Thanks for those updates. I'm in the same boat. As a matter of fact, I've got upcoming meetings. As you all know, Board of Health is this Thursday. Wheeler is tomorrow at 3 o'clock. ACRA, we are actually doing an ACRA retreat with the board. I think all of you are aware that ACRA is undergoing a little bit of a shift in how they're titling what their work is, and that is destination management more than marketing, and really looking at ways to make sure, again, that our community and our natural offerings and cultural offerings are sustainable. So that's on the 22nd. RAFTA is this Thursday morning at 8:30. And I will be in touch with you guys, Board of Health, as soon as I receive that. Other than that, CAST was scheduled to meet at the end of last month over in Steamboat, but we were not able to. So we did some virtual meetings, some really great virtual meetings. You know, housing and STRs are really the topics that are always on our plate. And we're talking about them a lot, so much to the point that we've started a housing task force as a subcommittee out of CAST. And I sent you guys some of that information about some of the policy initiatives that they're looking at supporting. And then I also forwarded to you from Margaret Bose the email that contains some of the short-term rental regulations that other ski areas are doing. So that came over, I think I sent that a day or two ago. Check your inbox for that. Like Ward, I'll be reporting back next time on all these meetings. And that should be board reports this evening. Let's move on down to the consent calendar. The consent calendar tonight is resolution number 12. Parks Department Fleet Replacement Contract for Welsh Equipment. Resolution number 15 for the Recreation Facilities Master Plan Project. Resolution 17, a contract for the Wheeler Opera House. Resolution 18, Growth Management Allotment Carry Forward Review. And then draft minutes of January 11th and 25th. Do we want to pull any of these for discussion? All right, that sounds good. I don't need discussion. I just wanted to bring up one item that, or clarification on two items, I guess. Resolution number 15, the Recreation Facilities Master Plan Project. It talks about the Aspen Ice Garden as well as the ARC, the rec center. And I asked Sarah the other day if this was, included in the scope was to look at some of the conversations that have gone around the ice garden and possible housing, a future housing site there, or combination of maintain the ice and the like. We've also heard different proposals out at the ARC for a second sheet or indoor facility for outdoor sports and the like. As Sarah said, no, this doesn't have that scope in it. This is really just about the facilities themselves and what they need moving forward. But I just wanted to bring that up because that has been conversation around council table as realm of possibilities for the future. So I just wanted to, make mention that this is not included in this, but if council members are interested in those conversations in the future, we can schedule those for another time. Ward, questions on that?
No, not on that. That was a GMQ, just a comment about the GMQS carry forward that, again, this year, we're not going to carry any allotments forward, but again, it indicates that the GMQS system does not really meet our needs at this time, and I think that's on our table for working on during the moratorium to update that and have some kind of a meaningful matrix on growth.
You are spot on with your comment, Ward. You are correct. That tonight is just that annual discussion that we have to do, some housekeeping. But the greater growth management conversation will happen in the work sessions that are coming forward as part of the moratorium. And I've got Philip on the line. I don't know if he wants to add anything on that one.
I don't have anything to add, Mayor Tory. Thank you.
All right. And Corey, yes, I did see you there for a second, but I didn't really need much comment there. I appreciate you being with us tonight, but just wanted to bring that up for councils to digest. No big deal. All right. Well, if that's discussion, then I would take a motion for consent calendar.
I would move to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second.
I'll second.
I got a second from Skippy. Any further discussion? Could we have a roll call vote for the consent calendar, please?
Counselor Doyle,
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein,
Yes.
Counselor Mesereau,
Yes.
Counselor Richards,
Yes.
Mayor Tory.
And a yes. Thank you. This evening, we have no notice of call-ups. We have no first readings of ordinances, but that brings us down to our public hearings. This is ordinance number 1, series 2022, amending Title 5 of the Aspen Municipal Code, marijuana and alcoholic beverages. And I see Jim True joining us, so I believe he will introduce this item.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is Jim True, City Attorney. I brought this forward to you at the last meeting to discuss the proposed amendments to the Title V regarding alcoholic beverages and marijuana regulations. This was originally brought forward from the the local licensing authority pursuant to Resolution 1, which I believe is in your packet. They requested that council consider adoption of these amendments. At the discussion last week, I noted there was some minor changes that were needed for second reading. One of them just both of them actually clarify inconsistencies that existed within the body of the code amendments. One changes 1 year to 12 months to be consistent with both the regulations for alcoholic beverages and marijuana. Previously, one said 12 months, the other one said 1 year. Now they both say 12 months. And also I proposed a change that appears substantive, but is actually not, as it just makes it consistent with the other language. And that gives the clerk the authority to approve a renewal application, but it also recognizes that the clerk or the licensing board can ask that there be consideration for a renewal of a license through the board itself, which is consistent with state statute. Generally, these changes are just trying to clarify various issues that have come up with the board over the years. And I believe this reflects the intent of the local licensing authority. Also, there's some clarifying language that results from the fact that the state amended Title 12 a few years ago and converted everything to Title 44 so that our local codes are consistent. I've addressed that in this ordinance. I'm happy to answer any other questions. This is a public hearing, so we would need to take public comment, but I'm happy to answer any questions in the meantime.
Before we go to public comment, are there any questions from council members? All right, then this is a public hearing on ordinance number 1, series 2022. Are there any members of the public that wish to comment this evening or ask questions regarding ordinance number 1? And one more call for public comment on ordinance number 1 this evening. Not seeing or hearing any, I'll close the public comment portion of the hearing and bring it back to council tables. We have opportunity for questions, or if everybody is okay with the proposed changes in the language, then I can take a motion.
I'll move to approve ordinance number 1, series of 2022, amending Title 5 of the Aspen Municipal Code, marijuana and alcoholic beverages.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Could we have a roll call vote for ordinance number 1?
Counselor Doyle,
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein,
Yes.
Counselor Metherow,
Yes.
Counselor Richards,
Yes.
Mayor Tory.
And a yes.
Thank you
Thank you,
very
Jim.
much. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
All right, that will bring us down to our action items this evening. We are joined by Dave Pesnicek, who's going to talk to us about the work plan amendments for the 2022 Eotc work plan. Hi, David.
There we go. Now I'm unmuted, I think. Let me
Gotcha.
try to get my presentation going here. Is that showing up for you guys?
It is.
Got it.
All right. Well, I am David Pesnicek. I'm the Regional Transportation Administrator for the Elected Officials Transportation Committee. This afternoon, I've got for you a group of amendments to the 2022 Eotc work plan. Let's see. I have to change slides here. There we go. As you may recall, this work plan was adopted, the 2022 work plan was adopted on October 28th of 21 as a part of the budget meeting, where we also approved the work plan for this year, this coming year. The amendments before you, these are due to new information received on the Brush Creek Park and Ride Federal Lands Access Program, or FLAP grant redevelopment. If you'll recall, this FLAP grant is a redevelopment of the Brush Creek Park and Ride that would install restroom facilities as well as associated well and septic. It would also repave the existing paved parking area and pave the recycled asphalt area in the rear, adding about 200 parking spaces. It would also replace the lighting and the landscaping within the facility. The construction has been planned for this summer 2022, and the construction advertising has been managed by Federal Highways Administration, or FHWA. The construction bids were received in December of last year, of 2021, and we were working on an assumption of an engineered estimate of $5.6 million. So that included a contingency as well as inflationary measures for this to determine this estimated cost for construction. We did receive 2 bids, one at $12 million and one at $15 million. So those are double to almost triple our engineer's estimate and what we have budgeted. The Federal Highway Administration and local staff do consider these bids to be too high to be reasonably awarded at this time. And Federal Highways Administration has let us know that they plan to re-advertise for construction this fall for summer construction of 2023. The causes for this, I think, won't come as a surprise to anybody. We anticipate it's a combination of labor shortages, material and equipment shortages, and high demand for construction contractors, as well as certain FHWA advertising requirements. And specifically there, because this is a small project for federal highways, they are required to first advertise it only to small companies, small construction companies. And because we did not get favorable bids, we anticipate that clause will be able to be removed in the next go around. We're also hopeful that the construction industry might stabilize a bit between now and the summer, and hopefully that will help bring about more reasonable costs for this construction. Looking at the group of amendments, so this list here, these are the amendments not in order of importance, but in terms of how they appear within the work plan itself. So the first one, and a little bit of to preface this a little bit, did take the opportunity here to do a little bit of cleanup since we were going back and looking at this, but the flap grant improvements and that delay is what really spawned this, and the rest are more or less incidental. The first one is pursuing the EOTC budget mitigation. This is proposed to be removed from the work plan. That is because this effort is complete. If you recall, this is the transfer of the no fare service from the EOTC to RAFTA. So that is has been wrapped up at this point. The second one is the Brush Creek Park and Ride flap grant improvements in that construction. As we discussed, moving that from 2022 to 2023 due to the high bids that we received. The third one here, this is the Brush Creek Park and Ride recommendation on long-term parking plan. So this is parking over 24 hours. And the plan here was to come before you at your May meeting with a staff recommendation on how to accommodate parking over that 24 hours. Due to the delay in the flap grant construction, the earliest we can do any implementation at this point would be 2024. So that really pushes out any possible implementation for this. And because we currently are working under a fairly ambitious work plan, delaying this out a year would help smooth demands on staff currently, and we believe it would also help bring you a better quality product. And we'll elaborate on that a little bit more as we got into the scope of work. I think that we, on the staff side, are in agreement that it may be necessary to hire a parking subject matter expert, and that would help flesh out the possible options for you to consider in terms of long-term parking out at the park and ride. And this, the delay in the flap grant improvements gives us that time to hire that subject matter expert. The fourth and fifth ones here, this is the Tresca-Tallow Creek Trail and the Buttermilk Bicycle Pedestrian Underpass. These are both moving on as planned. There's no delay here. This is just a clarification in terms of the report out timeframe. So as we develop the scope of work for the design RFPs, which are expected to be out on the street here in the next couple of weeks, we just wanted to clarify that report out we are currently anticipating in spring of 2023. And then looking at process a bit, so these amendments are going to the 3 jurisdictions separately. And the reason for that is a couple-fold. First is I wanted to get these updates out to you as soon as possible in terms of the flap grant delay. And the second one is that the March 24th EOTC agenda is looking to potentially be pretty full. So I didn't want to add additional work on top of that. In terms of the report out so far, I did meet with the Town of Snowmass Village Town Council yesterday evening. They did approve this unanimously at their meeting. Meeting with you this afternoon, and I'll be meeting with Picken County tomorrow afternoon. So in terms of the staff recommendation, we do recommend adoption and authorization for signature on the resolution of approval for these 2022 EOTC work plan amendments. I would just note that there are draft resolutions of approval within your packet for each of the jurisdictions, including the city, county, and town, if you'd like to review those. And with that, I'll pause and see if we've got any questions, comments, concerns.
Council, any items for David here? I know that some of you have been in touch with David already. So Rachel, Ward, and then John. So Rachel first.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for being the bearer of bad news, David. We won't shoot the messenger, but you know, I'm a little concerned that we're not really going to get any better bids in 2023. Given the large amount of infrastructure money that's flowing out to the states and things like that, you know, we just might not find that. And so that's a little bit of a worry to me. And I'd love to know what the FHAA would do with the flap grant if, again, next year it was an untenable bid. But I really don't have a lot of faith that the demand for construction is going to go down when you look at those billions of dollars flowing into the state right now. The two things I'd like to bring up, in general, I'm going to agree with this approach. It sounds like that's what's necessary. So that's it. It just kind of defines it for us. But I wanted to bring up, David, that the city of Aspen has agreed to spend $150,000 in community outreach to work with our community to understand what elements of the record of decision for the entrance of Aspen we're already enjoying on a daily basis, and what would need to be completed to be able to finish the BRT, frankly, and other aspects of the entrance. So I don't know how we mesh this with the Eotc work, or how or if it should be integrated into the retreat that we're planning coming up soon. But certainly our partners at Snowmass and Picken County have a large stake in the potential outcomes of this or not, and participation. So I'd like to start having you and our transportation department and your other partners put a little thought into how that may be something that at some level should evolve the Eotc, because at some level it will eventually, could eventually have requests for funding matches and things like that to see if we can move it forward more clearly. And I see Sarah's hands up, and we'll hear from Sarah in a second if I can finish my last comment. But the other thing is, I'm wondering if you know or could keep track of what is happening with the state transportation funds. The governor announced that he was wanting to delay the implementation of some of the fees on gasoline that were going to be, were legislatively approved last year, and was kind of finally, there's going to be transportation funding in the state of Colorado after 30 years of not seeing it move forward an inch, and the cost of asphalt going up several 100%. But the delay of that, I don't know if it's going to happen or not, or whether the state legislature would actually agree to legislation to put that forward. But my greater fear is that that will never actually be implemented. And we're at a place now that, hey, great, Colorado got free federal money. We don't have to tax ourselves to fix our own problems after all. And given the condition of our road, when you go out to 82 with the potholes, anywhere on Colorado roads are just falling apart, I'm really disappointed that there's this push to eliminate the transportation funding from Coloradans for Colorado's roads. And I think it affects our projects. That's the reason I'm bringing it up here. It affects what the state has to offer to go forward to help complete our projects or other projects that our traveling public depend upon. And we all know the price of gasoline can go up and down 50 cents a gallon every 3 months. But to eliminate the fee of 2 cents a gallon, when if you used 1,000 gallons or 2,000 gallons to the year, it's going to be $40. Is less than one alignment. It just is driving me crazy, and it really will inhibit our ability to ever move the entrance forward. So I'd love to know where they're at with that, and whether enough members of this board or Eotc as a whole feel it's important to maybe write a letter. But watching Brush Creek improvements being kicked to 23, possibly further if the grants come in as high and the state doesn't have money to help us out, we're not really doing anything to improve the situation for the commuters until we can deal with Brush Creek and until we can deal with the entrance. Thank you. Those are my comments.
Sarah, did you want to comment there?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to save David Pesnicek from this, because we've had multiple conversations about whether the entrance to Aspen goes on the retreat agenda or not. And in discussion with the manager of Snowmass Village and Picken County, we thought it was better that the first round of conversation actually being city staff going to work session to those other two governing bodies, so that there's good foundational information to all three governing bodies prior to a conversation at the Eotc. Just given that the retreat time is limited, and making the most of that to be focused on decision making to advance the work plan for the Eotc. So that's the strategy that we're employing for 2022. since the funding that was authorized by council is an educational effort, not a decision-making effort. Thank you.
That's very disappointing. That's all I can say. I don't know how we're ever going to start to deal with these things. I'd like to see us schedule a second retreat later in the year if this April retreat isn't even going to deal with the single biggest obstacle to commuters and our daily traffic jam and our biggest contribution to greenhouse gases. I'm just very disappointed.
And I don't think there's disagreement that it's an appropriate topic for the EOTC. There is a timing question, though, about how far should the EOTC get ahead of the community members, perhaps newer community members in particular, and understanding the record of decision. And so prioritizing that educational effort to help inform community conversation. Thank you.
Again, I can support that, Sarah, but I'd like to request that we have a second EOTC retreat scheduled for later in the summer after those discussions have been had. I mean, I'm personally to a point of thinking I'm going to go out and do my own petition drive for the use of that open space this November, because everyone else is quite content, it seems, to let this go on. And I hear from people about it daily. And I also think, as I've said before, we are not going to get our entitlements to the lumberyard until this community knows that something is going to happen with the entrance to Aspen, and that we're not going to just put 400 new cars or more on the road every morning when that project's completed without dealing with the entrance. That's just where I'm coming from. It's not to argue with anyone. I understand other people's priorities are different. I'm just saying how I see it lay out. Thank you.
Ward and then John.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just keep my comments brief into what David has presented, and basically recapping, David, what my email earlier today, questioning, first of all, expressing disappointment. And another disappointment, we can pin this on COVID or whatever we want to, but working with Holy Cross and for EV charging stations gets pushed back until the FLAP grant improvements are completed. The food truck, I think, is also a disappointment. We've been looking at trying to do that for a couple of years, and that gets pushed back. But the good news, David, in your response to my email was that the grants are secure and they carry forward, so we're not going to lose that grant money. And maybe Rachel's right, maybe we're not going to get better, but it's my understanding that the state wouldn't approve those contracts because they were just too high. And just register disappointment, but again, with the assurance that the grant money is not going to go away. It may buy less a year from now than it would at this point, but it's not buying anything now. So thank you for your work. I'll support this amended work plan for 2022.
Thanks, Ward. John?
Yeah, I just wanted to echo what Rachel said earlier. I appreciate the logic of working with the hand we're dealt with. It does seem like those bids were way too high. And if it helps with staff workload, I think, again, we just deal with what we get. I do have one question though, and that is, why does FHWA only advertise for bids in the autumn? I'm sure it's probably a state custom, but it seems like if we could advertise sooner, we might get more bids and one might be lower.
I can respond to that a little bit. In terms of the Federal Highway Administration and when they put out bids, it's their standard practice to put them out in the fall. CDOT does the same thing in terms of large construction projects for the next year. The feedback that Federal Highways had was they wanted to leave as much room between this bid and the next bid. and to try to maximize the chances that we do get a better bid. But you're all right that there's no guarantee. We don't know what the construction industry is going to look like come this fall, so that is still up in the air.
David.
All right, thank you.
Let me ask one other question potentially for the retreat, but should we think of a backup plan or have a plan B in case 2023 bids are no better? I mean, it seems like we would start to be holding on a lot of matching money and limited improvements. You know, I'm kind of wondering if there is a plan B. Are there portable electric car chargers that we could use? Is there really no space to be able to create a single concrete apron for a food truck before then? So that's my only thought, because again, I'm just not anticipating vastly better bids. Maybe they come down a couple million, but again, the pressure is on for anyone with a construction company right now, and it's not going to end. I mean, I'm looking at people doing and having bid problems with their water projects, you know, and other projects. So I just don't have a lot of faith we're going to see a big difference. And I think we should think a little about what is a plan B. Are there any alternate improvements we could make to Brush Creek if we can't do the real deal? Thank you.
I can respond to the alternate. So the way it's set up right now is there's options within the package. So depending on how the bids come back, we can remove things like the restroom facility, or we can remove certain turnarounds in order to bring the price back down to something that we can afford. And that those would then, presumably, we would have that on the docket to pursue later. So we will have those options before us if they come in high. What we saw this time is that there was nothing we could remove to even move forward. There was just no real tenable option. And for the EV chargers, I had the same concern. We had the old Eaton out at the Brush Creek Park and Ride for a number of years. The plan was that it was all going to get torn up this year, and we were going to get the conduit in, and we were going to be able to move on with some new chargers next year. My concern was that we were going to be sitting on that old EV or Eaton charger that really wasn't working. So over the last week, I did secure a new charger from Holy Cross. They charged us all of $1 for it. It's an older model, but it works. And it was installed this past weekend, and it just went live on Monday. So we do have a functional EV charger. It remains free to the public. The issue now is that we just don't have the conduit in the ground to be able to add more chargers. So we've got 2 plugs out there now. We have the 8 plugs that were added out at Buttermilk last year by Holy Cross under a similar agreement that we're looking to do out of Brush Creek. And the plan now is that let's see where we are in the fall before we start investing a whole bunch of money into really doing other infrastructure improvements that could then get torn out again.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Thanks, David.
Any other questions or comments about all this good news? Skippy?
Yeah, thank you, David. I appreciate it. I trust in you, and it'll be as it'll be. Mostly, I just wanted to comment, Rachel, for you. I just hear your passion on this issue. You've been extremely persistent on it. We've heard about it at a lot of meetings. I know it means a lot to you. And I just thought I'd offer, you know, something that may help move it forward. Because you've brought this up a lot, and I'll just use myself as a case study. You know, I don't support moving forward with the record of decision by itself. I just don't think it will be effective from a variety of perspectives. However, as you know, I think that moving to a pedestrian downtown is something that would be fundamentally transformative for the betterment of our community and can only really happen with the record of decision. And I've talked to others on other boards, people on this board who like that vision, but also in Snowmass and at the county. And so perhaps if we can take that step back and ask, how can we pair these things together? It may bring more people into that record of decision tent. And in such a place, I'll be out there with you campaigning. So just offer that.
You know, I'm not quite willing to tie the two together, Skippy, and you know maybe that's why we end up with neither in the future. But I'm already hearing, and we heard it from our CCLC interviews last night, how many people are very concerned about losing their parking for their businesses, and that might be what kills the entrance and combines to bring down lumberyard too. So, you know, there's a lot of things that are interrelated right now. People make connections that maybe they're not valid, maybe they're extremely valid. But, you know, I know how many people I've been hearing about lumberyard traffic and what's that going to do to the entrance. And frankly, I think it endangers our affordable housing efforts. So that's part of my passion.
Yeah, I wasn't. Yeah. No, I hear you. I wasn't trying to engage opposing views. I was just offering what I thought might be a help. And yeah.
No, I appreciate that very much. Thank you. Thank you. Need a motion on this then?
David, do you need this done by motion?
I do. I need to authorize signature on the resolution to amend the work plan.
Okay. Yes, I would take a motion.
I'll move we adopt resolution. Nicole, what resolution number would it be?
No, it's not. Just the EOTC work plan amendment.
And I think in our work packet that is as a resolution.
There wasn't a resolution presented in this packet. It can be done effectively through just a motion that states that you're adopting the amended work plan.
All right, I'll move that we adopt the amended work plan for Eotc for 2022.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further conversation? Can we have a roll call vote for this, please?
Councillor Doyle.
Yes.
Councillor Howenstein.
Yes.
Councillor Mazzaro.
Yes.
Councillor Richard.
No.
Mayor Tory.
Yes. All right. Thanks, David. Thanks for joining us this evening. Well, rock in a hard place, I guess. I don't like any of that either. All right, let's move on though. Our last item on our agenda this evening is this beauty right here, Affordable Housing Strategic Plan. I went ahead and printed this out because I wanted to have a hard copy with me because I really appreciate the work that's gone into this. We have Diane with us, and I think she is going to introduce this item.
Sorry, can I take a 2-minute bathroom break before we start?
Yes, you may.
I'll be. Thank you.
Why don't we just take a couple minutes? Anybody need to grab a glass of water or use the facility? Let's take a couple minutes. We'll be right back though.
Gracias. Tea, man.
Excuse me, Diane? Quick question for you while we're waiting. Have
Yes.
you ever skied the Wasatch Interconnect?
Do you know, I haven't. I had an opportunity to, but most of the time I was in Utah, I was a snowboarder, and everyone just said, don't do the interconnect on a snowboard. It's terrible. Did you do it?
No, but I think I mentioned while we were there, it hadn't been snowing. It was the same conditions we had here. And I was thinking, oh, we're not skiing powder. Why not do this Wasatch Interconnect? Because Tori, and Skip, you'll enjoy this. There's this thing called the Interconnect, and you can ski Snowbird, Alta, Solitude, Brighton, Park City, Deer Valley in one day.
Cool.
Just connect them. And if you're a really strong skier, you can get some really good powder skiing in as well, but it's mostly lift served, right? There's very little hard work that goes into this. Unfortunately, I could not talk my colleagues into doing it with me. So I'm going to go back.
I want to do that.
There is a plan called One Wasatch that got shelved at one point, but you put in a couple lifts and you actually interconnect all of them.
Yeah, I remember reading about that.
We've been talking about that here.
Now there are a lot of bumper stickers against the tram that's being proposed from Sandy up to Alta.
All right, council members are back with us, and we have Diane who's going to bring the Affordable Housing Strategic Plan to us. So let's go ahead and get restarted.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. As you hopefully noticed as you went through this is an output of your housing retreat. The material that went into this was first and foremost the results of that, and then staff overlaid onto that more detail on some of the implementation items. As you read in the report, one of the things that Ron and I heard in all our interviews, as well as continuing through the discussions of affordable housing, was the importance of having an action plan. So first off, just a quick thanks to the team, Ben Anderson, Chris Everson, Matthew Gillen, Ron LeBlanc, Scott Miller, Sarah Ott, Pete Strecker, and Philip Sapino. The reason I took the time to name the names is I'm not sure I've ever worked on a project that has been this collaborative and has had this many major contributors. So I really appreciated truly teamwork that made this happen. And we also had Kristen Lathrop, who was the graphic designer who used to work in special events, that really appreciated her work as well. So with that, the intent tonight is get as far as council is comfortable with tonight. On the high end, definitely want to go through kind of where the areas that you're comfortable with, where would you like to see some major changes? I've suggested some, for example, the decision matrix. As staff, we took a first pass at that, and then Pete Strecker said, actually, I think it was both Pete and Chris said, this is really kind of council's purview, and so we expect that to change, as well as other elements of this as well. Then also, if you'd like to talk about, do you want to set a more concrete goal, a concrete number? That may be another area you want to talk about. So what I'd suggest as we go through this, and if you're comfortable, it's actually a little more helpful to be able to see you, and I'd rather not put this up because I think I may make you seasick if I try to scroll through it. So if it's okay, I'd just like to kind of go through the sections. And maybe it's actually better, Mayor, to start with some high-level feedback on, are there specific areas that council would like to focus on, or do you just want me to start through the whole plan? Thank you.
Thanks, Diane. I guess, I just want to be clear. Tonight is presenting this first draft, if you will. And in your memo, you kind of gave a little guidance on maybe how to best attack this elephant one bite at a time. So I guess my question to you is, and you kind of just said it, but I know that some people have been through the document pretty thoroughly and have actual what might fall into the micro editing. So how deep do you? What are we trying? Do we want to try to tonight get this document to final form to be edited and brought back for acceptance? Okay.
Sorry, 2 years. I'm not good at that yet. That would be a great goal. I probably would love a first pass as far as council, and it may be the right thing to just go through and give me your high level of major changes that you think, or specific areas of focus. Mayor, you had a good one this afternoon about that you may want to look at prioritization of some of these. And so I guess that might be a good first pass, just so that everyone gets to kind of give an initial voice on, are there kind of big areas that you think either are missing or that are going to need particular attention? Thank you.
Okay. All right, I appreciate that. So then I'll just kick off with that one thought that I was sharing with Diane earlier today. And the one thought that I was sharing with her is that when we look at the action plan, decision matrix, or the prioritization that is in the document, I'm trying to see if I can find the page that it's actually on. It's up towards the beginning here. So page 6 of the document 101 of our packet. In the priorities section here, it has highest priority, top priority, and then priority. The item that is titled additional development neutral program elements, I didn't see that reflected up higher. And for me, and I'm really sharing this as much with council just to kind of kick off the conversation, that was the one thing that kind of came out to me that was, I would like to see probably a higher prioritization of development neutral approaches. And I know that we don't really have those formulated now. That's why I kind of would move it up, is because it's going to take some conversation, some pencil and eraser work and the like. So for me, and I'm just kicking off the conversation, that's one thing that I noticed. I was interested in more development neutral as being a little bit higher on the prioritization list. So I've shared that with Diane. I'm going to just use that as a kickoff, and then we'll start the conversation. Skippy?
Yeah, just jumping in on that. It's one of the many notes I have. And it's interesting, I sort of have conflicting notes in different places. So when I started reading through the plan and I looked at the priority list, I thought, well, that seems really low for something that could have a really big impact and we all have alignment on. But then when I looked at the specific page around that, and I looked at the timeline and the description, well, the description says, well, we know we have this goal. We know some of the tools in the toolbox, but we don't know how it goes together. And so we'd like to start working on that in 2022. And we have a goal of, if it needs a vote, which it probably will, but doesn't necessarily, then that could happen in 2023. And I thought, well, that seems like a perfectly reasonable timeline for that. So it was maybe if I was like passing by reading it, I would think from a public perception standpoint, I think it could stand higher so people understand what we're aiming for. But in terms of actual deliverables, I think it actually makes sense.
Right, I get what you're saying. I appreciate you pointing that out, and I see the same language that you're talking about. So if that's scheduled for work this year, yeah, it's hard to move that higher on a priority list, I guess is kind of what I'm getting from it.
Yeah, that's right. And I do have a couple other notes on that program when it comes to the priority matrix, but I'll hold those unless you want me to talk about that now.
I'm ready, unless other council members have something they want to jump in with right now. I'm ready for anyone to go through the document as they see fit. Diane, that's kind of okay by you, is to go section by section, council member? Okay.
Sure, absolutely. So great, let's start off at, I'm going to start off, actually going to jump to and I'll go by page, is it better for you to go by page number in the packet or page number of the plan?
Page number of the plan is going to be okay for us.
Okay, great. So I'm going to, page 5 is really, that is how will the plan be achieved? That comes, that is verbiage directly out of your adopted resolution that you adopted in August for council priorities.
Okay. One quick second then. So we're talking page 5 right now. The City of Aspen Housing Strategic Plan, what are the goals? How will it be achieved? My quick question to council members, did anybody have any items that they noticed in the first 4 pages? Skippy does. Okay, let's go ahead and let's hit that then.
Got it. Yeah, so just, I just also want to say for you, Diane, for the public, for staff, this is amazing. Like truly amazing. I don't know if y'all have had this experience, but certainly I have. Rachel, I'm sure you have, doing this 3-4 times longer than I have. But you know, sometimes it feels like we just talk about stuff, and you're like, what is this black hole? And then there's like a moment when all of a sudden there's something in front of you, and it's like everything that you've dreamt about doing is in one document with full alignment of a council and a staff that is like awesome, and it just is so incredible. So I am extremely excited. I'm very grateful. And I have a lot of notes, but they're just because I care about the little details, but this is overall fantastic. So just the initial graphic on, I guess what that is, page 2. You know, some of the feedback that I've been getting from more critical members of the community, which I think is fair, is like, you know, why we focused on building more stuff when we can't even get our own system, you know, taken care of. And you know, I've heard the same sort of comments from Rachel with a much more constructive tone, but it's like, well, we need to like really build trust in the system, and we need to make sure capital reserves are solved before we, you know, go and ask the public for the lumberyard. So just from that perspective, you know, I think the reality of what we're doing is, you know, first we're doing this housing sustainability and compliance, getting our house in order. The policy stuff is happening immediately, like right away under the moratorium. And then later on, we have development and development neutral, which are both going to be delivering units over time. So I just think that this slide would probably better represent that if you had kind of 1 is housing sustainability, 2 is policy, and then you had 3 and 4 at the same height being development neutral and new development. I think that would do that.
Sure.
One
comment, sorry, Skippy, before we leave that, one comment on that though is that, and by the way, if someone is suggesting a major change either to a graphic or a section, it's going to be important that we gain consensus on that. So this graphic was not intended to show time. It was to show staff's opinion of units that could be generated in this area. So compliance and sustainability, while really important, probably not. Staff believes that policy is probably going to be the thing that over time will generate the most units.
Interesting. Okay, that makes great sense, and that is not clear from this graphic.
Okay.
For me or from people I've heard from. So we should make that clear. But that's awesome. Second note, in the intro paragraph, we talk about the shift in utilization of residential into STRs. And I think we have to say vacancy and STRs, because vacancy is actually the bigger shift. And in the long run, will be the ultimate shift. So I just think both of those things need to be included.
Sure, Skippy, if you'll allow me, I would ask that those kind of wording suggestions, send those to me because tonight we're just trying to get through a lot of the major stuff and be able to hear from everybody. So if that's okay with you.
That is, I think, the only one like that I have. And I consider that major because it's literally 68% of the problem. So, I will, but if I have others, I will save them.
And Skippy, if you can send me that, because otherwise I'm gonna have to put on my glasses and find it.
Okay, I will send that to you. And the other note I had is just a compliment. The maintaining of the social fabric is a fantastic way to describe what we are trying to do. And I love seeing that interlaced throughout the document. I think those are my comments prior to page 5.
Thank you. Any other council members, any quick comments on the first 4 pages, which are table of contents and introductory materials? All right. All right, Diane, sorry about that, but let's get back on to page 5 then.
No, thanks, Mayor. And then the section down below is trying to give an orientation to kind of how this is going to happen. I will actually suggest on page 6, this prioritization is a direct result of the decision the decision matrix. And as staff, we very much think council needs to, you need to make that your own. So what I'm going to suggest is that we don't actually touch page 6 yet, recognizing that the decision matrix is what drives it. And if you decide to get rid of the decision matrix, we can just shift them as usual.
Okay.
Great. Pillars of the strategic plan come specifically right out of what you all said in the retreat. I think Rachel's got a comment.
Yep.
I'm struggling here.
Go ahead.
You know, I don't have a printout like Tori has, so I'm going back and forth between the packet online and our in-person conversation. Makes it a little challenging. You know, on that last one, you just moved through it kind of quickly, and I understand, Diane, that prioritization is going to take some work. But you know, I was just kind of looking at it, and things like finishing Burlingame 3 is really ongoing work, and lumberyard entitlements are ongoing work. I don't know if that's different from highest priority of kind of new things we're putting into the mix, or that we're just embarking on. That's a funny way to say it, but at least Burlingame 3, it is in the works. And so I don't know if we want a category that's in the works and as separate from, you know, the priorities, because I mean, and I don't want to waste time on this, but for me, finishing Burlingame 3 would be the top 3 of those 3. We know we have to deal with expiring deed restrictions, but that's not quite the same ongoing work as finishing Burlingame 3. So I do think we have to play with that a little. And again, I'm sorry for making us go backwards. It's between the 2 screens and 1 computer. It doesn't work too well.
No, that's a good call. And if it's helpful, I can share my screen and show this on the screen. Is that better, Rachel, if I show it?
I can go back and forth. If no one else is having challenges, it's just, it might take me a minute to hit my mute button at the right time. Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm okay.
I like having you, Diane, to see and the thing next to it, but I don't know what page Rachel's referencing, that I do want to look at it.
Page 6.
Yeah,
page 6.
I just
okay,
went back to page 6. So
Page 6.
Got it.
Yeah, it just
Great.
It doesn't strike me as, you know, yes, it's our highest priority, but that's because it's ongoing and we're going to sell them in a few months, you know, and versus these other things are highest priority to start, to implement, to do. It just, they seem like 2 different categories to me in a small way.
They are. They're different. And right. And Burlingame probably fits with the new stuff because we don't have funding yet. And there's a whole lot of work on that to do.
Lumberyard. Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, lumberyard. Thank you.
Yeah.
Diane, we got a comment, Ward?
Yeah, thank you. This is great work and I appreciate it. I don't want to get into wordsmithing, and I think that a lot of the these can run concurrently, like the APSHA stuff can run concurrent. Lumberyard is going to keep going. So these things really, I think, are all high priority to me, but I think they can run concurrently.
You're absolutely right, Ward, which is why the team put in the timeline in here, right? If you're staff, it's a little risky to put in the timeline. So however, everyone does have it. What helps with prioritization is it just gives a focus. That's all. Thanks.
John?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that, you know, the way I see it, it was just an acknowledgement that work is continuing rather than a prioritization. But I'm really impressed with this document. It clearly had a lot of thought and a lot of work went into it.
Thanks, John. Skippy?
Yep, just last thought on prioritization. Again, you know, I think the biggest critical element of the community that I'm hearing has this impression, which is an incorrect understanding, that we're dealing with compliance, right sizing our existing stock last, when in fact, APSHA at the next meeting is dealing with it. And so seeing it on the last priority, I think kind of drives that misunderstanding. And so maybe it could be broken off in some other way where it's like, you know, an APSHA bucket highest priority.
Okay, let's jump to pillars of the strategic plan. Again, that came from the retreat, strategic focus areas. Those are in other documents you have. I do think for me, the question of for whom affordable housing is intended, this was interpreted from the retreat and from your discussions that we've heard. Is there any direction change or kind of conceptual change to this section?
The parenthetic, sorry, go ahead, Rachel.
I was gonna say, not coming from me. I mean, when we discussed this at the meeting, we just said, we're taking our direction from the Aspen Area Community Plan. We're not here to change the community plans, housing focus. You know, working is the entry to the system, but it is a system that is building bedrooms for children and wants to see our long-term working community members retire here. So I haven't seen any changes in the direction of that. You know, I know Skippy and APSHA have wanted to have a conversation in the future about what is work. You know, what if you have an Aspen online business totally with no storefront selling to global customers? Will that count for your APSHA hours or other things? And I think that's maybe a different question that, you know, than who it's for. But, you know, and I don't know if it's true. I've kind of wondered. People have told me that Uber drivers don't qualify because we can't, you know, securely count that they get their hours or not. And yet at the same time, we want transportation options. But I see that as different from this section. And I don't know that it's appropriate to really modify what the community plan direction is. So that's my thoughts on it. Thank you.
Thanks, Ward.
Yeah, we've had discussions at the table about workforce housing, community housing, using all kinds of different names, but I think that we get community through housing workers. We get families, children, then eventually we get retired people. So we have a diverse mix of people in the community that APSHA calls for. And I do support what Rachel said about working is the entry point. I believe working for a business in Pickens County is still a requirement. I don't think is going to subsidize housing for somebody that is working remotely and doesn't support any local business.
You're on mute, Diane.
I was just practicing that part. Thank you both for that. And I'm glad you mentioned the Aspen Area Community Plan, Rachel. As a team, we talked a lot about making sure that is represented here. So every action item, for example, has a, how is this tied to the ACP? And we heard that loud and clear from all of you. Mayor, with your permission, I'll jump to the new units located. That is right off one of your flow charts. And if you ever want to see them, they're in my bottom drawer over here.
All the new units, amazing.
Yeah, they are. They're all in the little drawer, just like behind you, Skippy.
Yeah, that's right. We talked about that.
And livability standards was something you also talked about. So we included that and then more detail in the appendix. Hearing none, so Aspen Area Community Plan, should someone read this and not be familiar with it, we wanted to make sure that it was represented and all of the detail in the appendix, although we tried not to overdo it. Nicely done, John.
Within arm's reach.
Looking back, moving forward, where have we been successful? This again comes right from your retreat. This is what you talked about. Any additions, subtractions, missing? That would be additions. All right. Looking back, moving forward, what can we do better in the future?
Just one second. Yep, Skippy.
Yeah, so two notes on this. One, the council support claims. I just want to very enthusiastically concur with all these. I think these are fantastic. Love this. I love that we're calling out. I love that we're taking ownership. I love this. This is fantastic. And then second, this is clearly demonstrated in the data, but I think we would be served to, in narrative form, call out this reality more thoroughly throughout the document, which is from 2000 to 2001, we have delivered 389 units of housing. During that same time, to vacancy alone, we have lost 1,206. So our existing model over 20 years, despite being better than most towns will ever have, has only kept up with 25% of the loss. So I just think, you know, we can, in the narrative throughout this document, really call that out, because that is truly the crux of the challenge that we face, and what we need to find new solutions. Well, I shouldn't say new and additional solutions to.
So Skippy, help me for a second. Are you referencing stuff that's in here that you're saying we should echo again, or is this new content?
In the no, not new content. In the data, we show this, right? We show this with the percentage and the numbers of vacant homes. We show it with the number of units generated.
Okay,
but
sorry.
I don't think it appears, yep, and I think it doesn't appear in the narrative throughout the document, which really says, like, our model, which is we're very lucky to have, has not even kept up with 25% of the loss over the last 20 years. You know, we've lost 1,206 and we've gained 389.
Great, and thankfully both Ben and Chris are fabulous writers, and that's a good addition for them.
And Rachel?
Yeah, thank you. You know, I'm going to tag on here with Skippy a little bit, and I had some notes, and I wasn't really sure where they best fit in, Diane, and so I was kind of thinking around page 12 or 13, but I think they're very apropos to add on to what Skippy was saying. I know we have the section in here about the Valley Regional Housing Study and the shortfall it identified. We should put pre-pandemic behind there, because I think whatever it had is probably multiplied by another 20% or something from that. But, you know, I still think that there's a greater need for context about the housing program in here. There's just, it's a beautiful document. It's accurate. It covers a lot, But we never say how many jobs we have who need employees. And I don't know if that comes from the Bureau of Labor Statistics or what, but to be able to say that Pickens County, Aspen as an individual community has 11,000 jobs, 8,000, 9,000, I don't know, but that helps add the context to the housing issue, or how many units or jobs are in the county, or in total in the county. And the reason I just like statistics, you know, that we can say this is the statistic of these years. We know we have new jobs coming online. We have approvals, and we have construction projects in town that are going to be multiple more jobs. But I want to have, we're not talking about the job aspect of the problem we're trying to solve. We talk a lot about the community aspect of the problem we're trying, and sustainability and all the things that are dear to all of us. But we need to talk about the job and get some stats in there. And now I'm going to diverge for just a second with a comment, because I think it'll help explain where I'm at. But I read an article the other day, I'm trying to find it again, that the state of Colorado had used this term, which I'd never heard before, of naturally occurring affordable housing. And they're talking about free market elements that have been lost, whether they're really run down, whether they're mobile home parks, where they were buy and demolish and put up a single family home. But they said Colorado has lost hundreds of thousands of naturally occurring affordable housing. And what I'm getting at here is, I don't think it has begun to sink in on anyone how much naturally occurring housing that was for our workforce that we have lost throughout the valley. Everyone's focusing on Aspen and the units we've lost here and everything like that. But I got an email yesterday from a call to City Hall of someone who lived in a smaller mobile home park in the Mid-Valley, whose owner had sold the park and had told everyone they need to evacuate now and leave. And they're not in our county. We can't help them. But it is an example of a number of other working residents in our valley who just lost their housing. And this is just happening throughout. And I think it's the context of how much our community has depended on Down Valley to be our safety valve and to provide a workforce for all the jobs that has radically changed. And that context is really missing. I mean, honestly, I've been in meetings a dozen years ago when people said, hey, the safety valve of Missouri Heights and sheriff's deputies being able to buy a home there is gone. Well, so is Basalt, and so is Carbondale. And people are losing their housing throughout the valley faster than any communities making it. So this is what I want to make sure we have the real context of the problem, and hopefully some understanding within our community and people who receive the document that it doesn't matter how aggressively Aspen pursues housing and housing locations and housing construction and no build policies, and it's not going to make up what we've lost in the valley we don't control. It's been lost to market forces. So I just want that to be somehow represented in what we're trying to accomplish, because we're trying to replicate something that's gone, and we're not going to be able to replicate a workforce that served the Highlands and the buttermilk and the mountains and the resorts and all the 10,000 square foot homes the way we used to. And I don't want people to just think that we got a new action plan. And the other thing that I'm going to talk about in another section is this plan kind of makes it sound like it's all on Aspen. You know, it's all Aspen, you know. And so somewhere in this document needs to be the revenue sources that our community as a whole have to put towards this problem. And right now we know we have the real estate transfer tax and we have a sales tax, and we know approximately what they generate. But we also know that we're in a county that does not have any source for catching up on shortfall. And we need to make that clear within this document that to the extent any business owner, and many of them own businesses in Aspen but don't live in Aspen, they expect Aspen to somehow create the housing for all the employees of all our businesses with the revenues and resources we have now in all the best policy changes. You know, perhaps it'll take 20 years and you'll see something come forward. But I think context and some of the brass tacks details about who's putting money in, and also how much some of the average unit subsidy costs have been, so that people understand the magnitude of this issue.
Can I take, let's talk about the financial one coming up in the finance section. And sure. Absolutely, I think I read the same article you read, because that term I thought was particularly apt for the Valley as you did, and I can't remember where I read it. And I've already got a text from Philip that they've got some data they can add to this. So I think the idea that we're going to, so the other thing I do want to just confirm is the rest of council good in this section on need, assessing the need for affordable housing in the community, that in that section we'll add a piece on context around jobs, and we'll see about the, I think the naturally occurring affordable housing, that may be something we put in the regional housing section. I don't know, let me think about that one.
Yeah, you can think about it. And, you know, I'm imagining that this somewhat comes back to a draft with us again, at least one more review. And so if anyone feels I've stepped out of line or put things in or asked for things in there that don't make sense at the end of the day, we'll pull them back out. But I just want more context on the actual problem. You know, the problems we face of construction costs, those things are real. And this document will be looked at 4 years from now when none of us are on the board. And that's why I'd like to see it more complete.
Yeah, Rachel, that's a great addition. Thumbs up from folks on that section. Great, thank you.
Skippy, comments?
Yeah. I want to comment, Rachel. I so appreciate you bringing that up, and I think you're spot on understanding what's happening in the Valley. I think that there's a way that we can include that in the document. That may be a better way to present it to other communities, and that's just like a recognition that Aspen's the canary in the coal mine, right? Like, we're always ahead on these things. When Crested Butte never thought about affordable housing, we had to do it in the 70s because the wealth pressures arrived here first. The same thing has now happened where 40 years ago, we started losing naturally occurring affordable housing. I love that term, to STR and vacancy. And it's ramped up and it's ramped up and it's ramped up to the point where it's like almost complete here. And now it's happening down Valley. And I think the way that we can address that is to recognize that that's happened here. But rather than saying, you know, but we're not going to solve your problem, which I think can be viewed as something that will kind of divide the communities as you're on your own, rather take ownership of this happened here first. And so we're going to rise the challenge within our own community. And we believe this development neutral path is what can begin to reverse that trend. And we're going to pilot it here. And then we hope that you guys will adopt it in your community and solve it for yourself there. So we can kind of lead the charge on something new. I think that may be a better way to present it that may generate more support.
You know, Skippy, that's one way to look at it. I think another way is that, you know, our Valley may find itself at a real fork in the road. And I'm sorry if this is turning into a retreat type of philosophy here, but, you know, Aspen as a community, again, and in future years, may decide we need X amount of housing within Aspen city limits for our sustainable community goals and who we want to be. And if we're really going to solve the workforce issues, they're not going to be in Aspen. They're going to be somewhere else as well. And it's a two-prong approach. Now, I'm not there, and I don't think our community's there, but that might be what happens. And it's hard to say. I mean, when you get to a point when Basalt is approving new growth and says, hey, it's only for workers in Basalt, and we have a county who does not put anything into the shortfall issues, I'm really looking forward to seeing if they will put something on the ballot this November and start to join with us to fund these issues and these efforts. And I think it's important if we're putting how many $30 million into bringing those 72 units for sales online, should they be just for workers within city limits of Aspen, given that there's been no other public dollars by any other entity in there? And our business community is starting to ask us, why are you housing workers for someone else? If Basalt's not, why are we? And I want us to start talking about that question if we don't have partners who are going to start funding the shortfall with us.
Just quick comment. I think Rachel brings up a good point about, right, like these are meaty questions for you all. And because this plan really represents a lot of action that's going to be happening next month, right? You're going to be seeing pieces of this plan throughout the whole year. I think that is a really good opportunity, right? We're never going to be able to put a stake in the ground and tell this thing to not move. We're going to take our best shot at getting it to in 1 or 2 meetings, getting it to a adoptable version, knowing that it's going to continue to change. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's right, and Rachel, I think it's I think you're precisely right, and you know, I mean, look, we can choose how we address that. In my mind, the best way to inspire real change is to call people forward through action, and we've seen that work in the past, you know, and communities have an incentive to take care of their own, and if they see something else working over there, they're very likely to bring it in. That doesn't mean at the same time we can't be pushing or working with them on the back end, but I think in the language and spirit of the plan and frankly, what you've talked about a lot, regionalism, just approaching that conversation from the, you know, we can do that and you know, we hope you will too, and we'd support you in it, I think is the honey approach. Yep.
John?
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to what Rachel was saying about the changes that have gone on all the way down Valley, not just in Aspen. I participated in a workshop with Pitkin County a couple summers ago, over 9 weeks, and I asked the question, how many, we were talking about dropping the maximum house size in the county. I think right now it's at 15,000 square feet, I want to say, and no, it's not that big, but there are a
just
lot
to
of
be
examples.
technically correct, there are some older homes that are allowed the 15,000 because they got their approvals before, because the county didn't do a moratorium when they changed their code. But they do have to buy TDRs to get up to that amount. 5,700 is the maximum house size unless you're allowed more by prior zoning and you buy TDRs.
Yep, TDRs were a big part of the issue. At any rate, I asked the question, how many, I forget the exact number, so please don't quote me on this, but I want to say I asked how many homes in the county were over 12,000, 15,000, some of them are up to 20,000 feet. And the number I recall was, I think it was roughly 200 homes, and this is in the county, not in the city, over 12,000 square feet, right? And again, a lot of them are 15,000, 19,000. If you do the math, 200 times 12,000, that's 2.4 million square feet of space that is being serviced by workers, likely from down Valley. And the places that were there before likely housed local workers. And I guarantee most of these 12,000, 15,000 square foot homes have been built since 1970. Anyway, some perspective. Again, I agree with Rachel. This is a valley-wide issue. Thanks.
Great. Are you okay if I keep us moving through this? And give me a rough time. How much longer you want to spend on this tonight?
I'm feeling good.
I know, but you're like, do you want to do another 30 minutes, another hour?
Let's shoot for 30 minutes.
Let's shoot for 30 minutes.
Great. Let's try to move forward, knowing that there's going to be a lot more meaty stuff. Okay, so we've got assessing the need for affordable housing, community support readiness assessment, page 14. This was really a staff perspective on how ready are we. And then, and I'll ask you to stop me, otherwise I'll keep moving. The financial capacity.
I gotta stop you.
Okay.
Sorry. The needs assessment. I'll just share my personal opinion and you guys can all weigh in. I do not think that job growth should be an assumption or a goal. If I think of our community operating at max capacity over Christmas or New Year, there's zero part of me that feels like we need more. I think we need to do better with what we have. And we should be really clear about not confusing that with an increase of community members. So I think rather than, job growth as being a built-in, the goal, which kind of came from the language earlier, is really the community soul and sustainability is the overarching thing that we're shooting for. And the reality is our town was not founded in its modern incarnation that long ago. We've been a 1-generation town. We're becoming a 3-generation town right now. That's part of being a community. And so to have the workers we need, the retirees who built the place, and the kids, we're going to need to have more locals. But it's a rounding error compared to how many people are here at peak season. And I do not think we need more job growth or more of that. We just need to adjust to the circumstance. So I just throw that out as my firm opinion and listen to you guys.
Okay, so but I just want to be clear, Skippy, it's not a change to something in the document right now.
Well, I had read in here somewhere that I'm not looking at the exact thing, but in my notes, that one of our assumptions on need assessment is job growth. And I don't agree with that.
It's page 12. It's page 12.
Page 12, end of the first paragraph.
And it makes a mention of it along with gentrification and retirement.
Yeah. I just don't know. I mean, I agree. I don't know that I want to grow jobs, but I know I'm looking at an entire Lift 1 that's going to be new jobs. And I'm looking at all sorts of buildings that are torn down that are new jobs. So, whether it's, unless we're saying we'd like to not have enough employees for the jobs. I mean, I'm the one who keeps saying it's going to be a market disruption pretty soon here, Skippy, because there's not enough people for those jobs. But, I don't know that Diane is trying to say that we're measuring this program by how many jobs we have to fill, but the past studies that were done were based on job need. That's all I can say. No one's come up and said, hey, Aspen would be a great community if it only had 4,000 year-round residents, but we need 10,000 workers. The two have been intertwined. And so I just don't know how to separate them out.
And real quickly, Skippy, the section that you're talking about is referencing the 2012 needs assessment. It's not putting that 650. That is referencing the study that was done in 2012. It's not current.
It's not stated as our goal.
Right.
Yeah, got it. Maybe just some context. I mean, we certainly need to use the best data we have, and this is it, right? And we're not going to go back and redo the methodology of that or anything else. But somewhere in the goal statements that, City Council's goal is not to have job growth or growth of Aspen, but is to maintain the soul and character of our community. And that's going to require additional housing because of, the evaporating naturally occurring and because of the generational shift that we welcome. But that's the goal, not job growth. I just think in some way that really needs to be in there, because I know I hear that from all of us and it doesn't come through clear enough for me.
Yeah.
And thank you, Rachel, for that. And Mayor Tory, right? Because I don't know that if you want to manage job growth, I don't know if the affordable housing plan is the place to do it.
I'm not suggesting we manage job growth, Diane. I'm just suggesting when we're setting our goals, that we're communicating to the community of how much housing we need to deliver, that those goals should be based on the maintenance of community, right, the soul and sustainability of our community, not based on job growth numbers.
Yeah, and Skippy, I actually have a note on that that is specific to, we may need a goals page in here that's different, that talks about moving forward, who do you want to house? How do you want to, we've got the how do you want to get there, but we may need to address some more of that. I'm with you. So we we got to the ready, page 14, readiness assessment. Then
Yep.
we're up to financial capacity and requested timeline.
Yep. Skippy?
Sorry. I was just going to point out in the community support for the need of affordable housing, Next Gen has done multiple annual surveys of community needs. Housing is always the top thing, and those might be good things to include.
The one thing, Skippy, that I was really particular about with these is these are not web surveys. They're statistically significant. Okay.
Disregard that comment.
Cool. Great. Financial capacity and requested timeline. This is thanks to Pete Strucker, and I think Chris worked on this as well. Kind of where are we? SWOT analysis, page 16.
Skippy.
This is great. I love seeing this. What's that?
We're going to ration you.
Do you have comments on page 15?
On the SWOT analysis, I do.
Okay,
I'm really happy to see
16.
this in a city report. Wait, what's going on? Can you hear me?
Page
Yep.
16, yeah, I got you.
We can hear you.
Okay. In strengths, I would call out a dedicated, committed, and passionate staff that is of the community. I think that's a really big strength of ours internally. In the weaknesses, we say development neutral can't solve this problem alone. I thought that was a strange thing to call out. I think a better way to say that is no one solution can solve this problem, which is true, but that is also a strength. In threats, external threats.
Can you slow down first?
Slow down.
So we've got in there, under strengths, we do have knowledgeable staff.
Okay, I missed that.
Under weaknesses, is the rest of the council supportive of changing this to no one solution can solve this?
I'm okay with it the way it is. You know, I know what you're saying, Skippy, but we actually discussed it a little bit at the retreat, and I at least was one saying that I think it's going to take a two-prong approach, development neutral and new construction. And I don't think that development neutral alone will solve this. You know, that's just my impression. So I don't know if others feel the same way, but to me, leave it, you know, I can say under strengths that we will take multiple approaches, but I think it is a weakness for anyone to put all their eggs in that one basket of thinking that development neutral, so maybe it doesn't even need to be in there at all, but maybe it's policy alone won't get you there. You know, something a little less harsh.
I think we strike it. I think striking it is fine. I totally agree with you. I don't think it's going to solve it alone. I don't think anyone reasonably does, but it just seems weird when we know nothing will call it alone to call out one. So maybe we just strike it.
Skippy, I think this was specifically in a response to the discussion that you all had around development. What's awesome about the retreat is development neutral solutions took a center stage that they haven't necessarily taken in the same way before. For what we think council wants to accomplish, we very much thought that development neutral won't get you there alone. And this is frequently a refrain in the community. You know, all we have to do is enforce more at APSHA or those types of things. So we thought it important to call out. We can change it.
Yeah, I understand it from that perspective as sort of hedging against that critique. But I think it actually undermines a critical piece. And I would just suggest strike it because the truth is no one thing that we have in this plan is going to solve it.
Well, maybe that's a good weakness to put in there is that no one policy will solve the problem. And then you can list APSHA regulations, development neutral, wishful thinking or whatever else we want to add. But make it a multiple choice of items that won't solve the problem by themselves.
Thanks, you guys.
Comfortable with that.
I think that those could be opportunities too. I mean, you have one under a weakness that says development neutral can't solve it all, and then down a couple you have buy down existing free market. Those are, I don't know if that's a weakness or an opportunity, but I think the point is well taken that it's going to take multiple different attempts and approaches. And I don't know if we can solve it, but we can do the best we can to mitigate it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Ward. And I think I'm hearing a majority okay with changing the development neutral solutions alone can't solve the problem to no one solution will solve the problem. And Rachel, I won't list them all in here. I've done a lot of SWOT analyses in my life, and one of the things is they don't live alone, right? It's part of a plan. It's a snapshot.
Okay, I think that's acceptable. Thanks, Diane.
Thanks.
Works for me.
Awesome. In threat, I would add that there is a political attempt to undermine the credibility of the AH system right now.
And the purposes.
What's
and
that?
the purposes. The credibility
Yeah,
of
yeah,
the purposes.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And then
Let me
the last
sure I'm
one
wording that.
is
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Great.
and then the last one I have is in opportunity. We have an opportunity to realign the cost to create affordable housing to the current causes of the problem. Or rebalance
again, please.
is a better word because it's not changing. To rebalance the cost to create affordable housing to the current cause of the problem.
So it's kind of the having funding, getting funding from places that are causing the problem.
Yeah, and I say rebalance, it's not going to be a total change, but Philip and Ben talk about this all the time, right? Where our mitigation for commercial versus residential is way, way more because when the program was created, we were building new things and that's where the job growth was coming from. And now it's mostly in residential, right? So it's like we're just rebalancing.
Can you give me the wording again?
Rebalance the cost to create affordable housing with the current causes of the problem or challenges.
Okay, and what I will ask on any kind of things like this is I get what you're saying. I'll talk to the team about, we may reward it a little bit. So it's just that kind of, somebody looks at it and goes, I know what that means. Great, just like the one before. And is council okay that with those additions about, under the threats, discussions about redefining the need or changing the values on which the program, questioning the values on which the program stands?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, again, I think that could be an opportunity.
You're absolutely right on every, you've found the secret of SWOT analysis. At every strength is a weakness. Every opportunity is a threat.
The other thing, I'm not going to say which square it should go under. How about that? But I think the bottom weakness there, and I don't have the screen pulled back up, both of them, where it says highly dependent on outside resources. Is that a polite way of saying we don't have the money to do everything we'd like to do? I mean, it doesn't.
I think that's more from a development. So one of the things about a SWOT analysis, and maybe I'll have the designer make these a little bit bolder. On the above and to the side, you see
I saw those.
Internal, external. So that's a comment on internal resources that we're highly dependent on outside consultants, construction companies, et cetera, to do the work.
Okay, well, for me, that's expertise because resource sounds like money. You know, we're dependent on outside expertise, if that's what you're telling me. Because what I'm seeing missing under our weaknesses or threats, wherever it really belongs, is that we're the sole source of dollars for this right now. You know, we have the potential of risk with debt. If we take on too much debt and we don't have enough rental income or whatever. We saw what construction prices were just for the freaking park and ride lot. Does that mean that the estimates for the housing are double what we thought they were going to be just a week or two ago? You know, this is, again, we're getting into the larger issue, but I feel there really is a need to acknowledge the shortfall of revenues and inputs by other entities as we get into this.
Yep.
Because otherwise, again, this plan is going to be like, Aspen's going to solve it all. Look, Aspen has a great plan. Aspen's going to do it. And, you know, it's a great plan, but it's, what, 15, 20% funded if we're even talking about finishing the lumberyard.
Yeah, good point. And I do believe you've correctly put that under threat. Any concerns? I will depend on all of you for items that I look at and think that absolutely makes sense in there. Any concerns, just let me know. Okay to move?
Great,
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. What I will suggest is is that we come back to the decision matrix, because I really do think you're going to want to have a discussion about, do you want a decision matrix or do you just want to prioritize things? And then do you want to change any of the weighting or the categories? And I'd like to, I think we can fly through the rest of this.
Fair enough. One question for you on that, Diane. What is the weighted score? What's the raw score to the weighted score? Good
question. So the raw score is, so see on the top line where you see 5, 3, 4, 4, 5. That is the raw. Okay, so the raw score is, if we were to just score these and not actually try to weight them and not so every one of these scores is multiplied by every one you see, like development neutral out of 4 or 5. Yeah. So
Thank you.
And the reason we give you the raw score is sometimes people like to say, yeah, you know, that one actually scored higher raw score. I would move that up, or yeah, you got it.
Understood. I got it.
Okay, thank you. And I'm not going to ask for comments right now on the order that these are in, just on high level content. Absolutely, because these are all actions, we can get into the specifics of the action. At one point, we were going to just do this as a table, but we thought you might want more meat on the bones. Replacing expiring deed restrictions. You talked about that a lot. Good to go? Awesome. Complete lumberyard.
Yes.
Yes, do it. Complete Burlingame Phase 3.
Please.
Can we reverse the order on those two, Diane?
No, you don't get to do that yet. You will. You will.
Okay, because we're going to complete Burlingame before we complete the lumberyard. I just,
If you have your PDF and go to edit pages.
You know, actually, Rachel has a good point. I should have described that. The order that these are in is how they scored. And the only reason that lumberyard comes before Burlingame is because lumberyard creates more units and it scored higher.
Okay.
Cool. Complete Burlingame. Community development policy, I'll pause here for just a second. You all saw last week I thought Philip and Ben did an excellent job of describing that there are things that affect affordable housing that are going to be talked about as part of the moratorium discussion, right? There are policies that they are working on. There are also a lot of other policies that they will not have time to address in the next 6 months So instead of creating a page, and also their time was, we were doing this as they're developing all of the things that you've seen in the past few weeks. So so the approach with them was, unless we're specifically calling out something like certificates of affordable housing program enhancements, let's throw it all in one page. This one page, this summary, probably represents 5 or 6 different policy actions. Thank you.
Dippy.
Yeah, I was just going to feel like you're offering so much qualifiers. This page is phenomenal. Like, if we were to condense the whole plan down to one page to describe why this is so fantastic, this is it. The amount of listening from staff that went into this page to bring in ideas over years from every single council member, and then add ideas that we haven't talked about that make absolute sense, is just sensational. So I just think this is such an encapsulation of how, what an incredible job staff has done in this whole report, and I wanted to call that out.
Thanks, Skippy. And we really do appreciate you understanding that during the moratorium, there are things that can be done, and there are other things that just can't be tackled because of time and staff resources. Thanks. Certificate of affordable housing enhancements, that is something that you've heard of, that they are going to be looking at, as well as, I think, actually affordable housing by right in every zone is something during the moratorium they're looking at, I think.
I had Rachel. The credits. I had thought, Diane, I saw the little 4 bullet points or so in there, that one of the other improvements we're looking to is to allow the city of Aspen to purchase housing credits. And the previous program had us sitting on the sideline, and we thought it might create more revenue for developers, pro formas, more competition to actually build them after the credits have been purchased, things like that. So that was, I think, something our board has agreed on and discussed in the past.
Awesome. That's a great piece of feedback. I can just run that by the planning folks. Got it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Develop resources, new construction. I'll tell you, Pete and I were, oh, sorry, just one.
Skippy.
Yep. On the certificates page, I know we talk about it elsewhere, but I think it should live here. The GMQS changes and residential mitigation rate changes are going to be a big piece of this, because they're going to create more demand for this, and I think that should just be called out somewhere so people understand the intersection.
They've got that under the summary of community development policy recommendations. Yeah. They didn't want to have it on here, on the credits page.
Okay, if there's a strong region, I will defer to staff, but I would think if I'm a community member looking at this, they're very interrelated. That's going to create demand. And if I didn't see that, I would be going like, well, aren't they missing the most obvious way to create demand for this? That's how I would read it. But if staff has a firm other opinion, I'm happy to defer.
I will still, I got my post-it. Does GMQS belong on this page, or a mention of it?
But yeah, just a bullet, right? Like page 3's work reference will increase demand for this program.
Great, thanks. And I promise you, I have learned a lot in this process. I am not an expert, and that's why the team matters on this hugely. A quick description on financial resources. Pete and I talked this afternoon, and it's kind of strange because it's not necessarily a discrete action. It affects a lot of these things. It could be viewed as a separate item, but because of the importance of it to things like if we want to buy expiring deed restrictions, if we want to build the lumber yard, the financial tools are huge. So we decided to leave it in as an action item.
Yeah. Again, I think that this is where we should at least have a footnote that currently Pickens County does not contribute to the creation of affordable housing to address the shortfall. They do only collect mitigation dollars. I mean, this is where it's, again, about us, and I'll let you and Pete work on what is the appropriate wording, but the public, this is where we have to educate the public of you know, especially if, you know, Kelly keeps talking about trying to get something on the ballot, that it needs to happen. Thank you.
Other thoughts on that?
If that's the appropriate place for it, I mean, it's a mention. So I think it's an appropriate mention. I just don't know the place for it, but yes.
We do, there is a mention in the, it's specifically your support. So in the retreat, you actually talked as a council about your support for Pitkin County, the potential for them issuing a countywide tax. That does appear as a separate item in the regional collaboration. It shows up a couple other places. Just curious approach.
Again, this is a snapshot in time, and right now there are no additional county resources to assist with the construction of new affordable housing. I know they're trying to pursue state money mostly to help with stabilizing of Phillips Curve, and that's taking a lot of their funding, and I think it was close to 175,000 or so in currently for each of the 40 residents to have secured the site, but that's without any of the other improvements. And that was mitigation dollars. Those are dollars that came from new growth that left the other 40% unmitigated. It's just the way this sort of thing happens. God, I'm sorry, I had to address that because I forgot something else I was going to say on this section. Again, I think it might be valuable to put in what the cost of a housing unit has been, or a range of what it actually costs to construct when you have the full package between land and everything else. But it's all about framing what the magnitude of the issue and the challenge is to me. Let's see if I can recover that other thought.
No. Incentivizing voluntary downsizing, and every time we talk about this program, I emphasize voluntary and incentivized is staff recommendation.
Yeah, go ahead, Skippy.
Don't act so excited. I think this is great. I know it's implied, but I wonder if we should be calling out specifically engaging and working with the senior community in this. I think it's really important for them to kind of lead and get something preferable. And then I think there's room for improvement here on the interplay between APCHA work and the city work. This can make it seem like it's not happening for a while, and yet APCHA is taking this on at the board level right away. And if I were reading it and I wasn't on both boards, I really wouldn't understand how those things are working together.
Skippy, I do want to come back to that piece. On the senior community, we had actually as staff intentionally taken out references to seniors because of the concern it's been causing. And so it's this is a voluntary incentivized downsizing for anybody who's interested in downsizing is what we've heard so far. There hasn't been a specific focus from the APCHA board that's targeting seniors.
I think Rachel's actually talked a lot about the need to start thinking about senior housing and senior preference and all of that stuff. And I agree with her. I think that's a, yeah. So.
Oh, yeah, wait. I have never talked about a senior priority or preference, but I have said, our program has to take into account. But Skippy, I'm just going to say, I saw at least one reference somewhere in there on downsizing, and it says, for example, a senior. But it was very small, and I understand Diane's concern that this housing plan will be read into it by some to say, look, they're trying to move the seniors out, or look, they're trying to do this. And I think Allison at our last housing board meeting was the one to say, hey, if your two kids have grown up and gone away, a single parent might really want a 1-bedroom now, or that other people after a divorce, or people like to downsize other than seniors, and let's just not focus it on the senior population only, and have a downsize program or upsize program that works across the continuum.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I guess I was just trying to give more respect and focus on senior needs.
Yeah,
I don't think it's needed. That's fine.
Yeah, no, I mean, if we were going to put something in here that said city of Aspen to develop a senior continuing living community and dedicate the next housing $20 million to that, that would be a different and a totally new thing we haven't talked about. But you're right. I mean, we have talked about it at the APSHA board, but our board hasn't talked about it, that if you really want to get move in, move out opportunities, you have to have a place where people want to move to. And right now we don't.
Yeah.
And you know, we have talked about at the APSHA board trying to restart these surveys of what type of housing would people want to move into if they were to move. But we know there's so many cross wires on that right now. And we have, you know, we're advancing some ideas about that. But at the same time, the issues that were raised require a matrix to sort them out. Seniors don't want to move into something more expensive. They want to move into something less expensive. They don't want to move into something on the third floor with stairs. They want to move something on the first floor. That we have all those issues about what it takes to actually make the match is what, and APSHA board talked about how do we make matches between 2-person households and 4-person households for an exchange rather than just seniors. But you're absolutely right. I don't mean, I wasn't trying to contradict you, but that conversation has really only happened at the APSHA board and not the council board about if we're really going to get people moving along, we've got to uncross the wires, find out what all the components are that make someone desire that move and be willing to embark on it. And it is dedicating an awful lot of money to that, and we haven't done that. And the council hasn't talked that should be our next project or that should be a portion of the lumber yard or anything. So I can't find a way to put it in here.
Skippy, can you take me through your second point on this page?
The non-senior thing?
Yes, the second, you had one after the senior one.
Yeah. I think these are great, but I don't, if I were just reading this, I would not understand that APSHA is beginning this work on right sizing immediately. And I would not understand how that works with the city. So I think, you know, just to better clarify that this work is beginning right away at APSHA, and over time we'll work with the city to bring it to fruition.
And I think that's a good point, right? That this is APSHA. And I will say under the timeline, it does kind of point out this is a now thing. I think you're right, though, making it more clear this is owned by APSHA.
Yeah.
Although I will say Chris Everson is a huge help, and he's going to do a talk at the next, actually, he might just be talking about PG3, but we're actually already talking to him about his work that he's already done on downsizing. So thank you. Okay, to move to partnerships. See a thumbs up. Keep moving. APSHA compliance actions. And the APSHA policy actions. This page is much like the community development. We didn't want to do a separate page for each one of these because these are in process. And I think, you know, Skippy, based on your comment, I think I might ask the graphic designer or something to maybe we add the APSHA logo to this or something like that to just make it a little clear that that while the city council participates and has input, it's a little bit separate.
Yeah.
Yeah. In this one, oh, sorry, go ahead, Rachel.
I was still, I'm sorry. Somehow my thing is being weird. I was back on compliance. We moved along a little quickly there. I'm sorry about that. But, you know, I'm wondering if there should be, do you want to have, I mean, and I'm going to leave this open for you to think about, Diane, as someone who's been so close to APSHA for so long, but we know kind of the complaints that are out there and accusations, whether they're legitimate or not. but does it make sense to say how many are investigated each year, or an average of X many investigations of calls of violation concerns are investigated or anything? Does it make sense to talk about the fine schedule that is now complete and has a very significant fines for violations of the rules all the way up to and including eviction potential? I'm just thinking that this is one that people are like, oh, everybody knows someone who cheats the system. And it's like, well, why don't you call us and tell us who the heck it is? Because we don't know them. And I just am wondering if we should have a little more, maybe even have the phone number here that people could call if they see or feel like they have a violation. And then also within this, I think it is worth noting that there are 40 years worth of varying deed restrictions out there. And so when APSHA investigates, a lot of times people are doing exactly what their deed restriction allows them to do. But I think it might be worth describing the magnitude of the issue that you're managing for compliance. There are scattered site units. There are one-offs within free market condo complexes. I just think it's worth fleshing this out a little bit more. That's all. Thank you.
No, that's great. And Rachel, I appreciate that you identified an opportunity here, right? And as Skippy's talked about, we can add it, add an APSHA logo so it makes it clear it's APSHA. I think adding a description of how to report a complaint makes sense. And I think we'll also make sure to reassure people that APSHA wants to keep people in their units who are, right? So doing that balance, but also describing it, the fine schedule. Are folks okay with that?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And yes, I'm intentionally going fast and I don't mind going back. We're rocking. APSHA policy actions to improve sustainability. Woohoo!
Yep, Skippy.
Just a small note, the 10% capital improvement cap, it's part of the new deed restriction that's now been moved forward, so we can take it from considering to done. I think the 10% is important. Yeah, but I think we should keep it in. And the 10% is important, but it's not the only part of that new deed restriction, which, that new deed restriction is enabling the Standard for Sellers program, and it also allows the reset of the value. So they're capturing the 10% on that new assessed value. And I just think that's a really important benefit to call out.
We wrote this when we weren't sure what that was going to look like yet. So that is good to call out, as well as I think the energy improvements, as Rachel said, we've got deed restrictions out there.
Exactly.
Energy and efficiency. Okay, got it. Cool. Other things on APSHA policy to improve sustainability? Obviously, another APSHA owned and a long road to hoe. Additional development neutral elements. Let me explain this one for a second. This is a little like the finance one, but it's probably the difference between this one is we've actually taken, if you do look at your decision matrix, everything in red there are development neutral policies. So what we did was expiring deed restrictions, buying those out, that is a development neutral policy. Because of that one's just clearer and we think we can implement it faster, we called that one out as separate. So in some ways, this other additional development neutral elements are kind of over and above those other two that we've called out specifically in action plans. So they're more like the community development one where, hey, there's probably a lot more work to do on this stuff. Thanks.
Thank you.
Skippy, comments on development neutral?
Yeah, just some of the underlying math. It's certainly not incorrect, right? When we talk about 1.5, the cost of developing something or buying something out versus developing something new, that's true, but it's only true if the city buys it out wholly, which I think would be a really inefficient way to run this program. You know, VI.A, for instance, does the 20% down payment assistance. So they get it for 1/5 the cost, they get a deed restriction. Now, realistically, we're not going to get away with the same percentage of VI.A because stuff is more expensive here. But even at a 30% rate, we are leveraging that 3 times, right? So it might be 1.5 times the cost, but our cost per deed restriction is actually 1/3. So I just think until we have that stuff sussed out, you know, I don't know why we would be including this in that point.
I think this was when this one in here specifically refers to buy downs outright purchase of free market units.
Yeah, and that is one approach, right? But I don't want to discount that is a viable approach, and it may be one we choose for some reasons. But if we're trying to generate more units, the leveraged approach makes a lot more sense, and we just don't know where we're going to fall yet. So maybe just kind of calling out the construct of a tax or fee for STR or vacancy into a buy down program is sufficient at this point, and owning the fact that we don't have those details worked out. You know, what is the leverage? Who is it for? Who is it owned by? There's a lot of work to do, and we're going to do that over the next, year or 2.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, I just have to make a side comment on the VI.A program, because they get that money for just housing one employee in their house. They're not filling all the bedrooms. It's just one. And I think they're going to have a legal and enforcement nightmare 20 years from now, when the one employee is the accountant from my Chicago business that I told her to locate here in Vail, or the one bedroom is my personal masseuse. They're working 40 hours a week. I got a bad back. It's just going to be a massive enforcement nightmare of what does that one employee somewhere in Eagle County work as outside of that home or not. And again, it's just one bedroom. So
yeah, no, Rachel, I mean, you've raised this before, and I think it's really important, right? We need to look at what is and isn't working, and we're recognizing we're building something new. I mean, we did the ADU program, and someone could have equally critiqued us and said, wow, they didn't even put a requirement on it. How dumb was that? And that's like one way to discount that. But then someone else said, wow, that was a great idea, not executed properly. We can solve for that and do it better. So
Skippy, it was not legal to put a requirement that you put someone in an ADU. And it was hopeful that our own residents would understand the need.
I'm not critiquing that.
I'm just saying, let's keep it in focus.
Yeah, I'm not critiquing that. I'm just suggesting that we look at what isn't working and work through it rather than throw the baby out with the bathwater.
You made a comment that people did ADUs wrong and we could have done it right, and it would not have been legal to require that. That's all I'm getting at.
Sorry. To clarify, I was not saying we did it wrong. I was saying another community could have looked at that as an excuse to not look at a program. And I think that would be incorrect in doing that, which was the point.
So two quick comments. One is we're at the 30-minute mark, a little bit over it. And I'm sensing a little bit waning energy. Do you want to plow through another 15 minutes?
Yes. Where do we get in 15 minutes, Diane? What do you really need? What on
my schedule? We get done in 15 minutes, but you gotta let me.
You're talking about getting through the last 5 pages here before the appendix.
Yep, and then coming back to talk about decision matrix and weighting.
Council, how are we doing? 15 more minutes? Oh, I know. Okay. All right, Diane.
It is 7:30. My bedtime's like 9:30, so I'm good for a couple more hours if you want.
No.
Okay.
No, we're not running up to your bedtime on this. No,
Ward,
thank you.
Bring a hat.
Keep your hat off, Ward.
So on
15 minutes. Let's see where we can get in 15 minutes.
Okay.
Obviously, this is coming back to us and such like that. So let's take that 15 and then let's call it an evening.
Great. Thank you. I got a timer set. I put a square around the buy down section. So the reason staff addressed this is that council talked about it and it's mentioned in the AACP. And we can take this section out that starts with specifically on the topic of buy downs. We can take that section out if the majority would like that. Just know that this whole section will come back to you at some point this year about talking more about and filling out, if you will, additional development neutral topics.
Yeah, I'd leave it in because I'm just not willing to take anything off the table now. But if we find out they're just dead ends, then we can take it out in a few months. But I would give staff the leeway and direction to continue to pursue more development neutral scenarios.
I agree. We spent some time on it during the retreat and staff has spent time on it doing this plan. Thanks.
Yeah, there's a really powerful model in here that's going to take time and research, all the things Rachel talked about, but we can really make meaningful impact on our goal in a way that's preferable to community. So I think we absolutely, this is pillar.
Okay. What I'll add to 2022 on the estimated timeline, Skippy, is and council is adding a council discussion on the additional elements. So we come back and revisit this. Land banking, sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think that's great. But you know, I know staff's thought a lot about this as well. And so we'll want to see some thoughts from them rather than a blue sky.
Okay, land banking.
Yeah, I have a couple comments on that one, if that's okay. First, I really think starting off, we need to put up the contradiction that exists, because putting money into land banking for a future opportunity to develop tends to take dollars away from today's efforts to build actual production. So it's unnecessary, but it's not an easy choice when you say, you know, let's spend another 10 million on this or 10 million on that, and know that it's not going to get developed for a long time. But along those lines, I think you might want to mention that Burlingame land was purchased in 1996 as a land bank, and we're putting the third and final phase on it now, or actually the fourth if you count at Burlingame seasonal MAA housing. And the lumberyard was purchased a long time ago, and even some of the other sites. So I think maybe referencing how land banking has been used in the past to benefit the community and seize an opportunity before it disappears is an important component, and that our current housing projects are benefiting by the lower land cost of a purchase having occurred at Burlingame in 1996. You know, I mean, there's just got to be a way to work a little more of how it's been beneficial, how it's been used, and that literally the challenge of the trade-off that you're putting money into like a long-term stock investment as opposed to spending it on dinner tonight.
Great. Yeah, I think that fits well. Are folks on board with that concept? I think that fits well below paragraph 1 or 2.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, land banking is a really long-term strategy. Even the lumberyard looked like it was a good deal when we finally got around to working on it. And at the time, it looked like we paid, what, 30% over the appraised value. But you know, they're not making any more of it. Where there are opportunities, we should seize them or look at them seriously.
Yeah. John?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that reading through the memo and reading about the 688 Spruce address that we missed out on, it seems like these smaller parcels are the parcels that are going to be available. The big parcels are gone. And the smaller parcels also seem to be easier to develop. So I am fully in support of figuring out a way to do more aggressive land banking. Thanks.
Yeah, you know, just small history lesson when Bill Toot, Frank Peters were all on council and they started taking housing really seriously. The 7th and Main site was purchased. Where Cindy Christensen lives, Juan Street, over there on Hopkins Avenue, they bought probably 5 different parcels that then were slowly developed over town. Benedict Commons, you know, these sort of things. And it's just, if it weren't for that, we wouldn't have half the program we have now.
Cool. We're at 8 minutes. Regional collaboration.
I saw a land banking thing, which is just, there are some questions in here that I think should be statements. So for example, consider an incentive program for sellers, should be evaluate an incentive program for sellers. I think these are all great ideas and we should move them forward and not ask about them. And then just as a note to one of those suggestions, you know, is there a, you know, an AVLT equivalent for affordable housing, right? People who have been in the community for a long time who would want to, instead of their big piece of land for AVLT, would want to donate or in some way designate their property after they pass for affordable housing and get incentive for that in some way.
Skippy, I've always visualized that as being part of the buy down for somebody that could convert their legacy property for deed restricted, but they have to carve out inheritance to their family. But I've always envisioned that as a reverse mortgage type of situation. And in my mind, I've included that under buy downs.
Cool. I like that. That is interesting. So yeah, however it gets in there, but nice.
Yeah.
Great. Regional collaboration.
Really quickly, whether it works in regional collaboration and land banking, this is where additional funding partners would be extremely helpful. You know, the county contributed to the Habitat for Humanity site that the school district down valley had the land for. But in terms of land banking, it'd be great to have additional financial resources for that. And under this item as well, these are financial resource items, intently focused. And the one challenge that has always been there about regional cooperation, you know, you really need to do a SWOT analysis there, but part of it has been the concurrency of codes, and it's really hard to you know, where the equities of where the monies come in and the concurrency of codes. If a community is doing a 60% mitigation rate and another community is doing 10% or less, you know, how do you share resources? There's a lot of challenges there.
Yep. And I think the good news is that this is becoming a reality now, and all the pressures that you all talked about. Action's not currently prioritized. One of the things about a strategic plan is while you state, you know, here's where we're focusing, it is important to say, here's where we're not focusing now, but also we're keeping a list of things that we might look at in the future.
Skippy, go ahead.
Yeah, I understand why some of this is in there, and I don't necessarily agree with it. For just as an example, the VI.A and deed model. I would agree that we don't want to replicate the VI.A and deed model, but I think we've also talked about having a model that has a buy down element that may be in some way influenced for good or bad by the VI.A and deed model. So I don't know exactly how that works, but some of the reasons why we wouldn't do that model, it creates additional RO units. You know, I agree. We don't want a program that's all RO units, but we definitely want some RO units. And we just had a big part of our middle class priced out of the free market forever. And so if we can keep them in the community with RO units, that's a great benefit, and frees us up to do more of the lower category stuff at the city level. So I understand the intent, but I don't necessarily agree with these as being complete negatives. And so I'm just not sure how that all fits in.
Sure, and frankly, I'm fine removing this page. I don't think it's necessarily needed. Your call.
I'm fine with that.
You know, the only thing that I will offer as a counter to that is just that I don't like ideas that kind of keep recirculating, and it's like a cow chewing its cud, and it comes back up again every 5 months, and then you have to, you know, put it to the side again. So there's that, and then the other is that, you know, if there's things we've discussed that we're not going to do, like the one above this, you know, which is, no, we're not going to encourage more free market residential growth in hopes that the 60% mitigation keeps up. So I think it's okay, a little bit of a historic record to say this is kind of why we've taken this one off the list in terms of what it really would get us. Or you know, because we did talk about trying to find a buy down models that work for us, but not these models that are here. And Skippy, if it'd make you happier to leave it in to say, while we see shortcomings with this program, we'd hope to advance on it or something, you know, that we're not going to do an Indeed program. I mean, I can't even imagine spending that kind of money without a rental cap or what,
Yeah.
you know.
I think that would work for me. And and I'll try and pick an example that doesn't get under anyone's bonnet, but it's like, you know, if we were like, we had this housing shortage starting in the 60s, and the only places that had done it were big cities, and we looked at subsidized housing, you know, at the Taylor Green projects in Chicago, and we said, well, these are crime-ridden messes. We're not going to do affordable housing. It's like, well, we are going to do affordable housing, but we're going to like not do those parts that didn't work. And that's how I feel about this VI.A. Indeed thing.
Okay, so maybe it's just a little wording softening or something there.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, right. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I'm supportive of kind of the discussion that just happened there. I too am interested in looking if there is some sort of program that is adaptable for us. But so if that's okay, if softening the language there, then I can agree with that.
So that would mean just taking that out, right?
Well, I'm fine with that too. Like I said, I get the splitting hairs here about it's not that program, but the idea or the potential for something like it. I'm happy to go along with however that's captured.
And do know, part of the reason this is in here is because we hear this from the community. Why don't you just do the VI.A. Indeed program? Right. So it is also a specific response to that. I think the elements that Skippy that you're talking about already live in the development neutral alternatives.
Yeah.
They do. They absolutely do. And that's just why I found it confusing.
Okay.
Well, okay, maybe the clear up is to say not to negate the potential of buy downs as discussed in the development neutral section. This sort of program has flaws that are why we would not adopt it.
Got it. And that makes sense as a preamble. We will pursue.
Yeah.
Yep. Got it.
Just it's a cross reference.
Awesome. There is a review process. Look at that. We're still 20 seconds to the plus.
I hate to ask this question, but are we going to come back to the priority matrix at another meeting, which I would totally support? Or are we doing that now?
No. My thought was just right. I'm trying to read Hollywood Squares, and I think it makes sense to come back and discuss the decision matrix. I don't think we have to. Right, I don't have to write a giant report. I think you all kind of get the concept, and I'll just bring this same one back. Does that work?
Yeah, we'll finish it up another time.
Awesome. Great. Hey, thank you all. I really appreciate the time, the energy, the attention you put into this. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Diane.
Thank you, Diane.
Back at you, Diane, and the entire team that you listed earlier. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Congratulations and gratitude to the entire team. Thank you.
And I just sent that email you asked for, Diane.
I see
Okay.
Jim True.
I'm
Okay.
just playing the
Well,
part
I
of,
need to vote till- no.
I'm just playing the part of Nicole if you guys move to adjourn.
Thank you so
I move
much.
to adjourn.
Rachel, this is your cue.
I will second Skippy's motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
I get a
We have
rip
a
head. I
motion and a
just said
second.
it
Any
before
further
we even asked.
discussion? Seeing none, can we have a roll call vote for adjournment this evening?
Councilor Doyle,
Yes.
Councilor Howenstein,
Yes.
Councilor Mesereau,
Oi.
Councilor Richards,
Yes, and thanks everyone. This is a really good meeting.
Mayor Tory.
Yes. Thank you guys. Thank you to GrassRoots. Everybody have a wonderful evening. Enjoy dinner, good night's sleep. Hit the slopes whenever you can.
Ciao, y'all.
night.
Hell yeah.
And one bad
Cheers, y'all.
note for you guys if you missed it. So Michaela DNF'd again this evening. So
Oh,
she didn't make a run.
Well, at least she wasn't hurt.
Amen.
She DNS or DNF?
DNF.
F, I hope.
Oh,
Bye,
yeah.
guys.
Apparently
All right,
on
guys.
his
Have a great
food
evening.
date.
Good night.
Yeah. Ciao, y'all. I said it
Bye.
for you, Ward.